It is July 18th, 2018, and I'm calling the Board of Health meeting to order. So we have 3 variance hearings tonight and then some other topics, but we also have several items to be added as not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. So I'll go through them and then we can vote whether we want to amend the agenda. One is for an emergency well replacement on Mason Hill Road. And the other is a revision to a previously approved plan for North Main Street, 59 North Main. Do we have any others that came in last second? Okay. Do we have a motion to add these to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we can take care of some things. Let's do general chemical update. Since that stuff is pretty new, I forget when it came in, but it's complicated and extensive, so I think we should talk about that next meeting,
Thank you.
since it's more time to
Voluminous,
review
as
it.
you said.
Yes. So it always is, or almost always is. Let's see, I think I want the agent for the beaver permit, for the well, oops, okay, hold on. Can we ratify Agent Halal's previous approval of the Global Premier Soccer? So this was a camp that information was coming in late, and I believe we talked about the issues that she was to check before she issued that, and so I guess that happened, and we're ratifying her
And
action.
this is for 1 week. She's issuing, they're doing, I think, over the course, including April, and then 4 weeks during the summer. So this is just for the first week.
Okay,
And I guess the next, because they're different kids, different
Oh, and-
teachers or
oh,
whatever they.
interesting.
So she's requiring them to have separate permits each
So
time.
each permit is not applying to the same staff.
Right,
It's sort of, it could be a different camp given,
right. So this is for the
Sometimes it's
one-
different ages as well.
Yeah, and it's for the one that's already happened,
Okay.
but.
Are they going to be providing us the information in advance of the next 3?
She sent an email to the camp director Thursday saying she wants, for the next camp, they're not having it this week or next week. So it's the last week in July. She wants all that information by next Monday.
Okay.
And he had responded he would provide it. They were working on it.
Okay. And do they have to keep providing a check every time as well, or no?
They paid for all the
All of
weeks
it? Okay,
already.
perfect. That's easy. That sounds good.
I don't know if that's the usual way that it's been done or we don't get this kind of
This is
individual that
different,
sort of
yeah.
repeat.
if they
Yeah.
submitted everything with, these are the totality of camp counselors will have for all 3 camps. Like, it's
Yeah,
not that we
they
care about
didn't-
which
yeah.
week people work, but if they were like, here are the 10 people we'll have working for it
Maybe,
this summer,
yeah.
then it might be one application.
be
But because
different.
it's here's, we're submitting this group, these 3, and these 3, each 3 are
Yeah.
different, so it's a new application each time.
Yep,
Well, you
I
need new
guess.
queries.
No, that's what I
and
was
all.
wondering
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
maybe at some point we,
Could advise
for
them to
next summer,
say,
talk about if they
Yeah.
could get everything
One
together
package,
and
yeah.
anticipate.
Yeah.
Right,
um,
right.
Then it would also just save agent time as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because they could just mix and match. As long as we saw all-inclusive, it'd be fine. Yeah.
okay. Anyway, so do we have a motion to ratify the agent's approval?
So moved.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Woodhaven and Leland, we've got consumer confidence
Oh, yeah.
reports for both of them. And those are because they're a public water supply. It's a requirement that each year they prepare information for users of the water supply and distribute the information. So the things I noted is, so Leland Farms, the only thing that they really had was elevated sodium, which is something that's pretty common downtown.
Doesn't work right.
Oh, okay. And then, For Woodhaven, I noted that there was, I guess, one sample that was higher on lead. Anyone else have any kind of issues? And that could be, given the age, or when I think Woodhaven was constructed, probably leaded solder was still
Yeah,
used.
that's what they thought, that it's the corrosion of the plumbing versus, an actual source from the subsurface.
Okay, so,
It was still below the action level, though, so. that's-
because they do look at it across the board, but.
Right.
But that is still multiple
Pretty close.
samples from places, and somebody's getting that maybe more than others. Okay, let's see. A lot of these other things do require the agent.
Do you want to do just the signing of the?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So we'll do the warrants and payroll?
Okay, now there's a lot of them
Oh,
this
okay,
time.
perfect.
And that's because it was the switchover from the fiscal year 18, fiscal year 19. So for payroll, there, 1 week was fiscal year 18, 1 week was fiscal year 19, so we had to do two separate.
Oh.
And then fiscal year 18, the warrants, there was the end of the year, so we could, and then fiscal year 19 started, so there's Okay, so this one, because it includes the agent's computer, you should not sign this one.
Okay.
This warrant, because it's for Michael.
Yeah.
Just the top sheet?
Yeah, and date, please. So that can get skipped over.
Pass that down.
And then all the rest are good. All the rest are good. Should we just do it down the road, down the?
Yeah, I think start with that, and we'll just keep going.
Good. Each one.
Oh, yeah, right anywhere down there.
Sorry, I'm creating a traffic jam over here.
Oh,
I had a question, but I think these are the things that you guys discussed before I got here. That's why these are
What?
just, you just went over.
no,
these.
these are just approvals.
These
We
are
didn't
just from
discuss these.
before. No, but these are just signatures that we went over at the last meeting or something, now we're just signing them.
Well, this is the payroll and the warrant.
Yeah, but did we go over it before?
No, but they're, I don't,
No.
these are all things that
But I
we,
wasn't sure if I missed what I missed.
No.
I just wasn't sure if I missed it.
well, I haven't finished my review of general chemicals, so we said we're going to have to do that next meeting because it's
Oh,
like
I see.
400
Okay,
and something
okay.
pages.
That's good, because I was worried.
No.
And then I didn't, so this is just the routine stuff. Do I need to date my signature?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, June.
okay.
I didn't date my other one.
And when they talk about Mark and Rick as well, because I'm in a butter, so I have to go on the other side.
So I have a question for you about our neighbor's property when I'm not allowed to, I have to recuse myself from the board. Can I ask questions though as in a butter from the audience?
The irrigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, because I have neighbors' questions as well as,
I have questions too.
I think you are in a butter too, then, because you're across the street.
Yeah, no, for the irrigation, but I'm in a butter to Mark and Rika.
Yeah, I checked.
For the, for the septic.
And my,
So I'll have to go.
yeah, and my question has to do with, so far, everything's within the regs, so that's why no butters.
Yeah, don't talk about it, don't talk.
I'm just asking about procedure, but I can ask that.
Yeah, not now.
I've answered the flashing lights question.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, according to 2007, you have
And
to turn
David's
off
not
your high
coming
beams
tonight.
500 feet from an oncoming car.
Oh.
Then if you flash your lights and say no, then you get a ticket for defective equipment. That's the same $35 that not turning your lights off is. Because they'll say, well, there must be something wrong with your lights if you didn't flash them.
Oh,
They'll get you however they get you.
wow.
Why I can never finish my clinic on time and on.
500 feet? That's a long
Explain
way.
that to me.
Yeah.
Why is it?
Especially if you're coming around a tour.
500 feet from an oncoming vehicle, you need to turn off your lights. Flashing your lights is not in itself illegal. But if they say, did you flash your lights, and you say no, then they'll ding you for defective equipment, which is the same fine as not turning off your lights.
But it wasn't, I don't think I hit either of those thresholds.
Yeah, I
was
don't think
on-
so.
I got pulled over.
I think according to Google, you're in the clear.
Given a warning
All right,
because.
what do we got next?
Okay,
We
but
got a
you might
packed
not
agenda.
want to,
Anyway.
going over that right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you later.
Pulled over and got a warning.
Okay, so I'm having trouble finding something that we wouldn't benefit from having the agent here. Oh, we could talk about the minutes.
Sounds
I
long.
had some edits.
Shoot.
Were kind of minor.
You have
I left my edits at home.
you sent them to Ellen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome.
They weren't, I mean, nothing like
Yeah,
major,
I didn't have
but-
anything earth-shattering. I think I don't even remember what I did.
Till they'll email you. I had no strong feelings
I'm gonna write myself a
about the
note.
minutes.
Okay, so Lisa
I think I
will,
added a phrase or two to
Yeah, I'll,
clarify
um,
something, so.
I'm writing myself a message now
Okay.
that I'll email you any edits. Is that okay?
yep,
Okay.
Okay, given that the edits are of relatively minor nature, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as edited?
So moved?
Second.
And any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I have a problem because I'm missing some pages.
She emailed us some minutes.
Yeah, I
Missing
know, but I
pages?
didn't get the email copy. So I'm just wondering if,
in your packet, you were missing the pages?
I'm 8 for 8.
Yeah, those aren't the
the-
minutes.
no, I
That's
think this is just
preparatory
for,
to-
right, this is just
tonight.
relevant to the meeting, and that's why that was there, okay. But, right, okay, so I'm fine. I think I'm fine.
So is that
So
for?
are you only emailing the minutes?
I think they're
No, they were
here.
in, they were,
For the
I
top
emailed
item.
they were here
Yeah,
too.
Right, right, yeah. Because then I don't. Here it is, this one, okay, got it, yeah. So then I have everything. I realized after I wrote that to the meeting, so.
I've done all that.
Okay, so shall we move on to agenda items for the next meeting? And what's the date of the next meeting again?
8:15.
August 15th.
Okay.
It is possible I will be away, although it's still a source of some discussion.
It's literally the only day I'm there, I'm home that week, so.
Okay,
Lucky.
As long as you're home.
and I expect to be around, so.
I'll be here.
And
I can tell you my vacation, I'll be on vacation,
in the beginning of August, right?
yeah. July 27th through August 11th.
Okay. So General Chemical got moved to that. Are you okay if you're not here for the update? Okay. And you could go read the voluminous stuff,
Yeah,
too.
I'll watch the video. I mean, I think there's like at least a 50-50 I'll be there, but it's possible I won't.
Oh, is this last year? Didn't you make some Herculean drove back?
So that was for the June one. This one is like, there's some debate. My wife's leaving town, and I'm going on a separate trip because she hates going on that trip, and so she's taking the kids to see her parents.
Oh.
So it's a question of, when are they coming back? And so I think they're coming back on the 15th, which means I will also be back, but if they extend it, I may still be in New Hampshire.
Okay.
There you go. It's
So,
a great trip. No air
are we
conditioning, though.
going to contemplate a special meeting in advance of that, or to discuss potential regulations, or are we going to put that on that date? What do we,
Well,
I
I have,
think-
there's limited availability of Ellen, and I'll be away for part of the beginning of August.
oh yeah,
So,
Ellen's not going to be here. Okay.
I mean, I'd be happy to do another day sometime, but I think my preference would be for September.
Okay.
Beginning of September.
I mean, that works. I mean,
And I don't want to wait, because I'm worried about us ending up being.
So,
I can't, is this, I can't
Yeah,
hear the
You need to speak
discussion.
louder so that,
I don't even,
My-
what are you
I'm-
talking about?
I'm interested in not waiting
Not waiting
to
for?
discuss certain things that are,
well, so I think this falls into the
Potential.
8:15, 18 agenda items.
Is that what we're
Yes.
talking about?
Bullet to
Okay.
determine if there's a special meeting, if there's an integrated meeting, or if it goes to the next regular scheduled
Right.
meeting.
I hate having extra meetings and summer meetings, but I also am anxious about some of the issues that I think we should address.
And what's our agenda look like for the August 15th meeting?
Right now, there are 2 variance hearings.
So why don't we just put it there? And not try to work around a special meeting and say, right now, 2 variance hearing is better than 3 variance hearings.
and have the discussion of the regulations, which means legwork in advance, which
Yeah.
I'm not going to
You
have a
don't think
lot of
that's
time before
realistic?
then.
Okay. Do you
We
think
could try
that's-
it. We could take a start at it and maybe
and-
Or
clarify
maybe
some
an
information.
initial
that's-
regulatory discussion.
yeah, why don't we say a preliminary
Yeah.
discussion?
Can we make an appointment with ourselves for an hour, or something, like for a block of time that is like working time?
That
Which is
was-
always a
you
public
need-
meeting.
That's a meeting.
It's always a
No,
public
of course,
meeting.
of course, but you know, I've seen other public meetings of other boards where they've had a period of time
Where
where
they're
the
just-
board
I
works on the
understand
work
that.
of the board, and then the public comment is at another time, and I'm wondering if we had that. I don't know how
So
you
that
would.
there's a,
So
Well,
my
it's a meeting.
daughter-
Right.
That's a meeting. It
My
doesn't
daughter
matter
is
what you
leaving for
call it.
college, and I don't have a lot of days left to see her, and it's just one more thing. It's the
No, I'm
prep for
talking
it,
about in
it's
the
the
meeting.
At the meeting.
Right.
right,
I'm
so I
talking
think
about-
your
Saying
point is,
within the August
should we have
15th
an
meeting.
independent
Meeting.
agenda item to say, we'll have 30 minutes for
that's what
discussion?
any
Yeah, I think that's what we're
agenda item is.
discussing.
Yeah,
So
that's
let's
what we're
put
talking
an
about adding to
agenda
the
item.
15th.
Yeah.
You were saying a different meeting.
No, I'm
No,
talking about
yeah.
in the meeting. that we
Already
have
done.
scheduled on the
Yeah.
15th.
But I don't think we'll
Can we block
sched-
time so that it doesn't get filled with other things that get added? Do you know what I'm saying? No, but
Yeah.
I would say the answer to
We
that
can
is
block,
not
we can
likely.
block half an hour. I think
Well, no,
that's.
but
It just means
there's no-
longer
But I think
meetings.
there's no blocking.
Yeah, there's no, it's.
Like-
Yeah, it'll be on the
it's an
agenda.
item.
Okay.
I know, I was sort of being facetious when I say, can we make an appointment with ourselves? Because I know that people have appointments. I'm wondering, can we make an appointment where we have it?
Well, that's what all of these are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appointments
I know.
with ourselves.
Here's my suggestion, that
Right.
everybody review the drafts prior to that, and have their thoughts and comments formed prior to the meeting, so that we can be efficient in our discussion at the meeting. How about that?
great idea.
Okay.
And then I think if we can sort of be judicious in topics that don't require sort of immediate adjudication, to push those
Right.
to September, so the August 15th meeting does, or August 15th meeting doesn't. We're stuck,
That's-
we're stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
was saying.
Okay.
So, okay. All right, so we have, and I think that's enough, unless there's something else pressing that we want for August 15th.
That sounds good.
So-
That sounds
Oh,
good
and
to
I
me.
said I'll try and have General Chemical, I'll give an update
Okay.
as well.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Oh, actually, here's one more. We have a couple minutes. We'll see if we can get this. The bedroom count deed restriction for the fields at Sherborn, they dropped something off for us to sign, saying it was all ready. Town council said not ready, did not yet include some things that they had required. Did any amendment, did
No,
version
nothing
come in?
came in.
Okay.
No.
So
easy.
All right.
Not ready.
So, and thank you for checking with town council on
Yeah.
that, because that would have been
Yeah.
bad,
Yep.
since it was represented as being ready to go. Okay. Minute and a half. Let's see.
What about the,
I can get through 90 bottles and 99 bottles of beer on the wall.
Great.
I think I can do it.
Did you have something? I don't see anything else on the agenda.
no, I
that's-
guess we need Mark
That's
for.
doable without,
Yeah.
right? Yay!
He's got his stamps.
Hey, do you have a 1-minute item?
I have probably
Muskrat permit?
minute items.
Uh-oh.
I'm throwing the plans around.
I'm gonna play one of noise.
Which one would you like?
Muskrat permit.
Is the library one in 1 minute or not?
Library can be a minute if you'd like,
We can do library in 1 minute, Sean.
but he's here for another one too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said, but that's okay.
So you're doing the library first?
If the
Yeah.
board so wishes.
Library.
What, Mo?
We're
See, I
going to try
knew-
and do the library in a minute.
90 seconds.
Awesome.
Just
Oh.
gonna find it.
And you got me out of a meeting early.
We're here to serve.
And then you can go home.
And then, sure.
Library will be the one on the bottom, figures. They are looking to replace the building pipe. That's the pipe from the building to the septic tank. And in doing so,
Did it get damaged, or?
it's the building changed in that area, so because the building's being pushed out, they had to change the location of the pipe to the septic tank. So on this plan, which we're working on more things, I have a large plan here, and it shows the building and the pipe coming out to the septic tank, and it's gonna have a proposed drop manhole in it right here. It shows the manhole, drop manhole, as well as a clean out here. The one question, and Sean and I discussed it, is a clean out on the inside. You know if there's gonna be one right near the...
There is.
There is, okay. Because it didn't show it on this, but I'm sure the plumbing plan showed it.
That's what, yeah, I remember seeing it in writing that they verified that it was a foot inside the foundation.
That's fine, as long as it's close by, because you're coming out at a sharp angle there, so, and, let's see, I have this on.
And you see one right at the tank, right, Mark?
Yes, yeah, I showed them that one. Here it is. So here's the plan I marked out. This is the plan that shows pretty much the same thing I just showed you, which is
Big grid.
And let me orientate myself, so again, I showed you that, that's the question I had there, is the 90-degree here, is for the clean out.
Okay.
They do have one at this 90-degree, and that's the question I had. And this is the original sewer line going in, and now coming out of the new portion of the building.
Okay, so does this mean that if we were to approve these, it would be maybe conditional to receipt of an updated plan to show the cleanouts?
That would be, they're gonna have to give me an updated plan, an as-built anyways,
Okay.
so, and they're gonna abandon the old line here too, so it's all on this side, his Sager Street coming down, and the library is being extended out. And they're gonna abandon the existing sewer line that I showed you on this one too, coming out, and transform it down here with the cleanouts. And the sewer
Okay.
manhole is being abandoned, what's presently there, and what presently is there, it goes down the line. Remember years ago, Chris, I don't know if you were here with the, not Chris, Lynn, the other Chris,
Chris Owen.
He was concerned about trucks parking on the side of the Sager. And the reason he was concerned is the sewer distribution
Pipe.
lines there, so it's being moved in a little bit, so.
So it won't have the load.
So it sounds like
Okay,
no concerns
So we
on
can
your,
approve, and we can approve it, and
And then they
given
can-
that in the minutes, we have CM&D director saying that the cleanouts are going to
Yep,
be
I have
added.
that. Yep.
Well, there's already one shown, the one
Okay.
shown is down near the tank. It's just the one in the building, we don't have any notes on it, so we're taking your word.
The
that
clean
we
out.
want in the
Taking
building.
my word that I saw in writing.
And
I
then,
saw it.
Is it
I
already?
saw in writing that somebody else saw it.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if it was already installed, so.
and
it
that
is
the
project,
final
yes, it is.
plans will show it, the as-bills.
And we're hoping this will be the only plan that will be needed to be seen, but there may be further work being done down here, depending on the status of the existing soil absorption system in the tank. And we'll know as we go along what we find down here, so. Recommend approval for the
Okay.
building height with the cleanouts.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve plan as presented, noting that there are updates coming regarding the cleanouts?
So moved?
Second.
And any other issues? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and it's, we have a variance hearing for 58 North Main Street for a septic replacement. And are there any abutters?
I happen to be,
Oh, okay. Happen to be. So if you want to look over the plans as the engineer comes up to present the case,
I grew up on it.
so feel free.
Okay, all the green cards have been received, everything's all set.
Okay.
I left room for you guys.
So what I was planning tonight with David was that we would go more slowly through variances so that we'd have a chance to
Not
explain.
necessary.
But, yeah, we won't do that tonight.
Evening, everyone.
So, hello.
Aye.
Need a magnifying glass. 58 North Main, probably Sherborn's smallest lot ever. Got a couple of jobs done, the barns are bigger than this lot. So the issue here really is the size of the lot and the fact that the neighbor's wells are right on top of the property line somehow. So there are variances in property lines to on-site well to neighbor's well. And the groundwater's high, so we've got the. So how would you like to go through this?
Can I just add one thing? So Ellen and I, before the meeting, recalled Marianne's points when I think one of the abutters was moving a well. So I think it was 60 North Main was the kind of abutter that moved on the other side of the driveway, kind of highlighting this question.
They're moving it around?
Well, so they moved their
Very
well,
tiny.
which led it to be closer to, my recollection was to the 58 North Main.
Oh, you mean they did already?
They did it already,
Not
so
planning
that.
to move in one room.
No, so I think they moved it in the fall, but I think this was one of the questions you raised at that time to say they're moving it closer to kind of where my cesspit is and those pieces and what are the implications for me. And I think
Oh,
at
I
that time,
remember that hearing, yeah.
you know, we sort of said, we'll consider your application, you know, kind of in the context at the time with the specifics of the site. But I think it's just worth noting that the kind of, there's a piece of moving a previous well that further moved that well closer to the site that we're now thinking about, that we
Yeah.
talked about and said, we need to do that for that well. I think that context is important as we think about this application.
Okay. Well, the way we've designed it, we actually still are over 100 feet from their well, which is compliance in Title V. The other problem, though, is the neighbor on the other side of 54 North Main, the well is only 10 feet off the property line. The house is up here, 200 feet away. But it is what it is. And then Mary Ann's own well is here out front. And that was a recent replacement of the old well that went there. So what we've done, though, is designed a fast geoflow for the advanced treatment aspects of it to try to get as much treatment as we can. But we've got a series of variances here.
And can you, just to orient me, I think there's a cesspit or a cesspool or something.
Right now, here's the house, drive in, this is the garage, this is the driveway, and the driveway out. Currently, there's a cesspool in the back, and off of that, there's a pit, and off of that pit, there's another pit.
And this is because it currently doesn't meet any of the Title V requirements. So this isn't like.
It's a
we're-
failed
We're building a bigger
Right.
house, we want to expand our system. This is,
Right, there's no increase in flow proposed.
right.
Right.
So it's going to be an improvement.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
and
right
to,
now, it's a cesspool.
Right.
Groundwater.
Right,
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
and to give an idea, we're looking at a property that I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50% impervious surface, which, given the size of the lots in town, that's very, very, very
Oh, right,
rare.
right.
So
Yeah, and
there
we're
isn't a
actually-
lot of space left.
No.
We're
Yeah.
reducing a little of that imperviousness by removing the asphalt and repaving all this.
Oh, that's good.
So that'll.
And is the footprint of the proposed system, the whole footprint of the replacement system, is it bigger, smaller, or same as the current, cesspit?
It's
Well, the current cesspool, 2 pits are probably
right in here.
small
6% of
percentage,
the
yeah.
size of the leach field. Yeah.
They really are just
They're that
circular
small.
things.
Yeah,
okay,
they're
yeah.
tiny holes in the ground,
Okay.
really. Okay, so, would you like me to read through this
Uh,
list?
We'll just go through one by one and vote on each one that seems to go more.
So the answer to
Easily.
her question is that it's smaller than the
The
new,
current system probably is about 5% of the
Of the
amount
s-
of
of the
leaching
new
area that
area.
we're providing.
Yeah, right.
So you're providing more surface area to do a
Right,
better
so-
job
so-
leaching, which requires a larger footprint.
Exactly.
Plus, we're pre-treating it,
Right.
so it's.
So in other words, the chance for much less concentrated effluent is much better with the replacement system than with the old system.
And it's pre-treated where right now it goes in a hole.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to highlight the,
Okay.
you know,
The other thing I should put out, just in case you're not aware of it, because the septic system is within 100 feet of a neighbor's well, anytime that neighbor wants to sell, they have to test the well.
Yeah, and Paul, I actually called the state on that because it was unique. We don't see too many of these type of systems. We have 3 homes right next to each other, and it would be up to the Board of Health to make that decision, is what Claire Golden said. So if they go to sell the house next door, and that well will now, if it's approved, their well will be less than 100, greater than 50, then it would be up to the board to make that decision. If, most likely, we would, and I would ask when we go over that waiver, maybe, is the abutter here?
No, but green cards are back.
Yeah,
Have-
all the
have they
green
been-
cards are here.
Have they been made aware that this is happening? No, I mean,
the
obviously, but,
variances,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if they're aware of the laws about a Title V
I can
inspection.
tell you one thing, Mary Ann sought to get them to sell some of the land, their land goes behind here as well. And they indicated they would like to, but if they did, then their lot would be non-compliant, so they can't really put the square
Oh.
foot on there. So
Oh.
nothing we can do other than,
But
And so, does
Interest-
the state say
yeah.
anything about, okay, so this property owner would be required to do the testing on the neighbor's well? But-
No,
then
what
the-
they said is if they go to sell their property, the Title V inspector will recognize that their septic system,
Oh, so the
Is-
burden falls on the neighbor.
Exactly,
Right.
which
Yeah.
seems a little unfair.
but they also
but-
said the neighbor does not need to test their well, but the Title V inspector needs to note the distance.
But I think
And-
the neighbor also had a well that got put 10 feet from a property line.
Right.
And so it's a question of figuring out like where that burden sits. It's also the choice of,
Well, what came first?
yeah, was it one family that owned everything or
The
something?
Board of
like-
Health could require
Be
it,
interested
Yeah.
to
At
know the
that
history.
point.
You don't know.
so.
I mean,
we just don't
to
know,
me,
so
it
it's tough for us
certainly
to-
seems like a smart thing to do. It's a little unfortunate that they would have to pay for that, but it's kind of nobody's fault. It's just the
Right.
way it got developed.
Unless there's a problem with the well, and then does the state have a process for,
Resolving.
Let's see, she said,
Resolution.
otherwise it's just a mess and they won't be able to sell their home. Not saying that it should have contaminated water,
They might
but,
want to put in a new well if they realize that their wells.
right, and then knowing while they're living there would be
although if it
better
has
than
been
knowing when they're selling.
contaminated with a cesspool of 2 pits.
I know, I think it's a low probability problem.
Can I
Yeah.
just say something about that?
Have they tested it?
My old well was literally right next to theirs, and that doesn't necessarily
Yeah, I
mean
see that,
anything.
abandoned.
It was 12 feet down, it was a shallow well.
Ooh,
I only put in a new well, I can't remember what year I put the new well in, but I've had my
That's her
water
new well right
tested
there.
quite frequently.
her well.
And mine's
Her
even
well
closer
used to
from
be
my cesspool and
this
never
one,
had
that blue
one
dot.
thing, and I have test after test after test without any contamination.
the dug
In
well,
In the dug well, which was only 12 feet down.
yeah, so,
for years and years and years. The only thing the Doug well had was high salt. Like it was 8.
That's probably from, it could be from road salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that happens, I mean, I've
Yeah.
tested it, you know, frequently over the years. Huh?
Well, so it seems
Don't
like,
scare me,
So-
I'd rather an elephant.
so do we just want to go through these sequentially? 'Cause-
Yeah, and then we'll get back to, would we have to, at this time, make some decision about whether
Way
we...
Claire worded it, and I can read her memo, it's kind of,
Discretionary.
it is at this point. She even noted that potential, say if there was a potential problem in the abutters well when they go to sell, such as bacteria nitrates, you would still not know where that contamination was coming from, she said. Was it caused by the abutting septic system or by the
Right.
owner's own septic system? She did note, but I don't know if this has been discussed, that maybe the homeowners could share a well and share a septic, and that
That
would
seems
solve the
incredibly
problem.
complicated to.
That would be quite an agreement to
Yeah.
happen, and I
I mean, I am substantially less comfortable with that than with saying you need
That
to
was
test
just
versus you
her
need to share.
recommendation. I had a feeling, that would probably bring out quite a few complications, so.
Also, in terms of making the decision about something like this tonight, when I really never thought about it before, I could see, though, requiring that a letter be sent to the abutter, letting them know that this could be an issue when they go to sell, that the Title V inspector may require this, and others may require
Yeah.
I
testing.
think that would be good to provide
given
them
the
notice.
distance.
Yeah, I think that,
But I guess my question is, I think having notification of the implications fits with our larger theme of transparency. I think the question is, if the abutter says, I object to this, it's really a question of, are there any technical alternatives? And right now, everything we're talking about is an improvement from what's there.
Right.
Like, so it's a question of, is it notification or is it delaying the decision on?
no, but I
No,
don't,
it's
I don't
just
have to, they should
notification.
object to it. We're just saying,
Yeah.
by
We're
the
just
way,
saying-
We're making
giving them
it
a heads
better.
up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all.
so I don't think
it's
that's,
And they'd
good for
have
them
been
to know.
notified.
I think that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Especially
And
if
rather
they,
than writing a letter, why don't you just send them a minute?
I would just, a
Oh,
letter's
that's
nicer.
more complicated.
Yeah, a
I
letter's
Is it?
less confusing.
Yeah, I think just
But
being
the other thing is
succinct.
that it might be that they are planning to live there for 10 more years, and if they know the circumstances now, they might decide to do something now rather than waiting until they sell.
Yeah, do a
Who
base
knows?
test.
Or like,
Yeah,
all of this is safer
they
than
could
what's
make the
there.
decision
and
of their-
that they-
whatever.
Oh, no,
Right.
I'm saying, only so they know.
Right.
That
Right.
they may be required by some other party when they
Down the
get to
road.
that stage
Yeah, yeah.
because of the distance that's going to be set up by this.
And that would have been the case even if.
Right.
Well, I was gonna just say
Right.
that, it was,
Right.
that was the status quo.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think even adding that in a letter, to be clear, as you're aware,
Right.
your well is located, within 100 feet
And now
of your abutters, blah, blah, blah. They're replacing it with an improved septic system. However, we just wanted to make sure, provide the
I want
notice.
to use this opportunity to highlight.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I think that works.
Okay, so here we go. How do you folks want to do it? Do you want to, I could just announce the section that we're looking at a variance for, you could read it rather than me read it out loud in order to keep things
think-
moving along, would that work?
Works for me. Work for you, Ellen?
Is that okay with the
Yeah.
rest of the board?
Sure.
Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 1.2, which is allowing bed design?
So moved?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 5.1C?
And
And
can
this
we-
has less test pits.
And so that's just the same impervious surface issue that we just ran out of spots to put a hole?
There's,
Right,
yeah, no room.
Sounds good?
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the site's limited as it is, and we were lucky we got one deep hole in, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right, so we had a motion,
So moved?
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 5.1D? And this is sieve analysis versus perk tests.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to grant variance to 8.01, which is depth to groundwater.
So moved.
Second.
And Mark, I'm assuming there really is nowhere on site that would meet that. That doesn't already have the structure built on it.
It's
Yeah.
pretty level site,
Yeah.
so I would think the site has issues throughout with the groundwater. And they are using a geoflow with a fast pretreatment, so.
We're on the highest part of the site as well.
Doesn't it slope
It gets
down?
low.
Yeah.
It goes down towards the street.
All right. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02, which is related to the last one of distance to groundwater?
So moved.
Second. Oh,
All those in favor?
matter.
aye.
Aye. We have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.1BC, and this is regarding
just
the well that
discussed.
we were just talking about.
Yes.
Both wells, actually.
Oh, yes, both wells.
Is it two wells? Or is
Yeah,
it-
both sides. So one is within 100 feet, one's 108 feet. But neither distance is the, what is it, 125?
Yes.
It's 125 is our,
Well, in this type of soil, it's
175?
175
Oh,
in this
okay.
type of soil.
It's less than 2 minutes and it's downhill.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right, it's downhill. Yep.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this includes
do we
the
need to-
existing.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, this includes the 58 feet to the 54 North Main Street well, the 107.9, and then obviously
To the-
at 60 North Main Street, it's 80.3 feet, just so the board knows.
Right, they had that as a separate item. Yeah.
Okay.
The on-site well is a separate item.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we need, and for the letter communication that we described, is that associated with this, or is it a separate?
This is
It would
the,
have been
this
the
is the
one
waiver
before.
that
Okay.
will be affecting the abutter.
This one, the 10.1
In future,
BC
Yep.
unless they move their well, this will
effect.
put a permanent effect to 54 North Main Street.
And so do we need to associate that with that motion, or do we do it at the end?
I think this would be the appropriate time.
Okay, and so with an associated communication to the impacted abutter,
well.
54 North Main, notifying them that they may have testing requirements based on Title V at the time of transfer of property.
And who's sending that? Is that coming from the engineer? Is that coming
I would
from?
like it to
Didn't-
come from the engineer. I
Mark,
think.
Mark had the information, though, right?
Well, I have the notice from the state of how it would work.
Yeah.
The call. We have,
okay.
Ellen dictated pretty much what Claire Golden from Northeast Regional DEP noted. So it more or less puts the burden on the Board of Health that
Okay.
if the Title V inspector will have to note the distance when they go to sell that house, when they do a Title V inspection. And I'm not for sure about their own system, if they're going to have to test their own well for that transaction. That they would have to do.
We don't know.
But as it relates to
So-
the,
But who's the requiring body? Is it, who will be requiring the testing? Board of Health as a condition, or
it
Title
would
V
be,
as Title
according to
V?
the state, they wouldn't have to do the well test if they wish not to, unless the Board of Health decided differently. I can read this out if you want, the way she,
But what Mark
She
just said
noted.
is exactly what Claire said.
Okay.
Is there a well, I'm trying to think, I've sold that house 3 times. I'm trying to think if their well has to be tested anyhow because it's too close to their own septic.
that's what I'm wondering.
Well, that's what we were just asking. I don't
I'm
know.
trying to remember.
I
So is this a letter that you feel you could draft, just saying, we just, approved such and such, it's an upgrade to what was there, and it's ever so slightly closer to that corner, but
And we
it's a
can
much
even-
improved
sure.
system, but here are the requirements you may face in the future, we just want you to be aware.
Indicate it's being improved, indicate what they're required to do.
But
And
who's-
Or that they-
already
They
be
may
doing
be
it for
Yeah.
their
They
own.
may be
They may be
required, because
required.
it's,
Yeah.
we're not positive. It's,
Well, they're required to note it on the Title
On the
V
Title V.
inspection report. And they're required to do the water testing, but they can refuse it, is the way Claire
Okay.
worded it.
well, how can they be required and then it be
Yeah.
They
refused?
can,
That
because it's
doesn't make
not, because
sense.
it wasn't their
It's not on
doing.
their property,
Yeah.
yeah, the septic.
It was
So unless their
the
own
action of
septic is
tonight
too
that
close.
has caused this. So it is tricky. The board is acting.
That's odd.
It is odd. It doesn't have, that's why I called the state. I've
Yeah.
never had this
So
happen.
the abutter is required to, but could choose to refuse.
That's what
But would then
Clea
have to
said.
make an active choice to refuse or decline, and if
Well-
they're assigned the property.
And then
one
we
would
could,
imagine-
we, on the other hand,
Board of Health
could
can make-
require it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to put it as a contingency to say it may be required, because it's hard to say what a future board will decide. So if 10 years from now, it's hard to say, the board would say, oh, you have to do that, but it
Yeah.
should come before the board.
Okay,
I don't know how you folks are even gonna track it, that house could sell
right.
Yeah.
passing Title V.
No, I
You'd
think
never
just
know.
letting them know, though, that it may be
Right.
required, say we pass a reg.
And then if the
or
next
somebody
person says,
passes
hey,
a
did you
reg.
know about this? You say, yeah, it's in the file at Board of Health. You got notification that this was required. You didn't disclose it to the next purchaser.
The onus is really on the Title V inspector. If he misses this,
Right.
it's his fault.
Yeah.
It's not really on the homeowner.
In a future, the buyer
Right.
may want it. So I think the may be required kind of takes care of that.
Can I just say that I bet if you check the file, Board of Health file on 54 North Main and see the last Title V that was done, it might show whether they had to anyhow.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be worth
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
looking at that one.
But that's okay. I still think we should send a letter because this is a very explicit action we're taking right now. So I would
Yeah.
like to follow that up with a letter.
Um,
Okay, so do we have a motion to authorize Mark to write such a letter to the butter?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Did we do this on-site?
10-1.
Well, not yet. Okay. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.1 BC? And this is regarding the distance from the system to the on-site well.
So moved?
Perfect. Seconded?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And you know about the requirement that you'll face. Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.2? And this has to do with property line distance.
So moved.
Second?
And this, as we know, it's being squeezed in as best it can, so it needed every inch. So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and now we have, does this win for number of variances?
I think so.
So these are Title V local upgrade approvals, so this has to do with 310 CMR 15, which is Title V. So do we have a motion to grant a variance to, I'm going to skip the, and just go right to 15.4051A.
So moved.
Second.
And some of these overlap with what we
They're
have.
very
Similar.
parallel, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.4051B?
So moved.
Second.
And are there any provisions needed when it's close to the garage slab? It's a slab. If it was a basement, you would need a line or a barrier, right?
It would be a
But
concern if the system were higher than the garage slab, but in this case, it's lower anyway.
oh, okay. All
And by
right.
the way, just so you know, gillfless low drip lines don't have a breakup. It could be 10 feet in the air and a foot from the cliff, and there's no breakup.
Oh.
It's like drip irrigation. It really doesn't cause breakout
It's
issues.
very slow and,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I can't remember. Did we have motions already?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.4051D? And this has to do, this and the next one have to do with well distances again.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And same one again, 15.4051D. Again, the on-site, the others for the off-site.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And you'll notice there's no variance required for the third well because it's built on.
Right, so it's not a Title V
That's right, Title
variance.
V
yeah.
issue. So, okay, and last one. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.4051I? And that's, again, related to the sieve analysis.
So moved?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll close the hearing, and are the plans ready for approval?
They're ready for approval, again, conditional to deed recordings being received for the garbage grinder and also for the alternative system being put in.
So do we have a motion to approve the plans, subject to receipt of the 2 deed restrictions noted by Mark?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Good.
Sure.
So if I go to sell my house, do I have to do 3 well tests?
Only your own
Yes.
property,
Oh,
only your own well.
Because your well's the only one that's changing hands.
Okay, all right, just.
Yeah.
Thought that would be.
And then because it's private, both
Now
are
needs to
private,
sign that.
any abutter can elect to do something on their own well, but you're the one required.
Have a good night. Mark, do you think we can get the muskrat permit in
That's
2
what I was gonna
minutes?
say.
The already trapped muskrat permit, can we do that in 2 minutes?
Muskrat, you almost threw me off of that. You mean the beaver?
Well, it said beaver. Somebody put
It says
muskrat in.
beaver
I-
muskrat.
I've never had the muskrat included, so I was
No,
intrigued.
no, that's fine. I just,
It's the name of
I
it.
didn't hear you say beaver. I just heard muskrat. I said, oh, now we have muskrats in town?
Yeah,
Oh, you know, I'm an abutter to this, so I would assume I
Yes.
should
yeah.
choose myself.
Recommend that you ratify the original approval.
And what was the scoop?
What's that?
What was the issue?
The beavers were starting to cause flooding, which could undermine the road.
Okay. Do I have a motion to ratify the issued 10-day beaver and muskrat permit for Forest Street Sewell Brook Culvert?
So moved.
Second it? All those in favor?
I know, I'm torn about this.
I know you do.
Well, if there's
Right.
documented road,
Yeah,
you
is there,
You don't want
know, yeah,
to-
that's,
was there
Yeah.
damage to the
And
road?
and we have to be
It was
350
working its
because we
way
have
to
to
the
be
level going over the
a
road,
predominance
so
of the
they
board.
were-
Going
not a
Yeah, and
predominance
it's
of the
already
quorum.
been approved. It's been
Yeah.
issued. It's
Yeah.
probably, it's already
We're-
expired,
In this
actually.
case,
Aye.
I'm sure,
gotta manage it. You gotta
So I think
put them
three
in.
ayes.
previously approved, so.
right, yeah.
Three ayes.
They don't care anyway.
4 ayes minus 1.
Huh?
ayes.
Yeah, we do need your.
Was it a
vote, though.
muskrat or a beaver?
Beaver,
All right,
beavers.
beaver is.
Yeah.
Did they get them?
Sean was handling it. I don't know if they did or not, but hopefully they did.
He left.
Yeah,
Time with his new job.
perfect. Okay, so we can check that one off. What can we do in a minute? We got to be able to do
Can
something.
do with the emergency, you know, that you want.
Well, no, Daryl needs to come back.
Yeah,
Yep.
we voted for it.
We said that you said it was okay if they use your property as a stage.
As the beaver refuge, yes.
Beaver pelt riding area.
It's like
are
a
welcome.
compound,
Right.
All right,
condo.
so we are at 8 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a variance hearing
I have to-
scheduled at 8
And
for,
I have to-
has to-
Bye.
Say goodbye.
We're playing musical
We
chairs.
all are abstaining tonight for different cases.
septic replacement for 221 Washington Street. Have all the green cards been received?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Am I allowed to look at?
Of course.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
As long as you don't make any faces or
You're allowed
comments.
to be in the audience because you could have been in the audience
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
This is 221 Washington Street. It's located at the corner of Western and Washington. Right here is where they just tore down the house and built the wall. It's an existing 3-bedroom house, wells in the front yard, in the grass area and the driveway turnaround. Existing septic system's back here. It's a traditional system with a tank, D-box in the field. It's in failure. It's definitely in the groundwater. We showed the well buffers. This is the 100-foot, the 125. The other wells are 1 to 200 feet away. Yeah, it's way over in here.
Where is your house?
My house is here.
On this map,
Western.
on here?
Oh, it is.
You're right across from the new house there.
Yeah, so I'm like right here.
Okay,
My-
and the
my
new
well's in
house
the
is
front yard.
here?
No, the new house is here.
Oh, yeah, okay, so where's this house?
Their house is on the corner of, Washington.
up
It's right here.
It's opposite.
Okay, there it
So
is.
It's
okay.
literally the corner.
I see,
And
okay, now I
This is the
know.
property where they
Yep.
set up the Christmas
Across West 16 is
Yeah.
where they do the.
Right, it's across from them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right. That's what I wanted to see on that.
And Stonegate's on the other side, Stonegate.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it's good, that,
Yeah, it's nice.
that beautiful farm?
So we did testing here back in April. It was a mess. We were able to get 2 months. It was snowing out, it was wet. We had groundwater, which was at like 14 inches.
Pretty much
Sounds like
muffled.
my yard. I've been there.
The
Yeah.
backhoe almost got stuck.
Yeah.
There was goats.
Same sheet, new goes.
Yeah.
At a certain point, like
Is that true?
it's making noises, it's for like this mud.
Their sheep are cute.
So they would have had about a 4 or 5 foot mound for the traditional system, or even an Elgin would have been 3 or 4. So they decided to go with the geoflow. This was the best location. There's an area over here we could use it for farming and grazing. It's actually a separate lot. So with this type of system, as you know, we are requesting some variances from both the local and state.
Okay. So I do have a question. I know
Yeah.
they may want to sell this off at some point,
Yeah.
but, I mean, is it officially a separate lot already?
It's combined now, but it's a separate parcel. I mean,
Okay.
they own both of them. There should be a line. You can see the tick mark there.
Oh, okay.
Actually goes through. And then her well is right, so the buffer would have been,
Oh,
would have
all
been
right.
just left in the corner of the.
There- is
Okay.
there one in
And
the
it's
front
pretty
yard, too?
flat here, right?
Yeah,
So
it's really
if it's 14 inches here, you'd kind of think it was 14 inches over here?
good. Yeah. What do you mean?
Didn't you
The
say it's
distance to
depth to
groundwater.
groundwater?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I
because
would
it's,
say.
I think,
'Cause
my
there's also
recollection.
wetlands back here too.
And like, so my driveway, there's between, like, right on our property boundary, this is wet, like, all spring.
Is it?
Yeah, and when it rains, like, when that rain came.
It gets flooded.
We have flooding.
Ducks.
Okay.
Yeah, your septic's on this side. It's
All
a
right.
mound- It's a mound.
Mine is
Yeah.
on my side yard and it is mounted.
Okay.
But it's a fast system.
Well, how long ago was this separate cut off? So this house has been there for a long time.
Yeah, probably the 50s or
60s.
60s.
Yeah,
It
so-
looks like a,
Yeah,
like a Brady
so-
Bunch house.
Yeah, it's a slab. Actually, it has a basement. It's a.
It does have a basement.
Yeah.
Oh,
So wait, is that their current paddock? Is that located, okay, I guess that's.
Yeah.
So they're gonna put it on their,
This goes on for 350 feet.
yeah,
so-
so they're proposing it on the side closer to Stonegate.
Yeah.
Okay.
the east,
okay,
yeah.
just a quick question. Robert, are you here for the variance hearing for 221? Are you here for the variance hearing for the property that's diagonally across the street from you? Because we're talking about it now.
Yeah,
You're over here, right? Yeah.
So this is the new house.
No,
Well,
he's-
where they tore
No,
down.
no, I'm
You're-
not.
You're down the street, right?
Yeah, yeah, okay. No, I'm interested in property over here.
Stonegate.
Mark and,
Oh, Mark and Rika, no, that is what we're talking
Yeah.
about, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this
it's-
is my house, that's Mark and Rika, so I have to get.
And I think you're in this corner, and,
Well, no, you're across Washington, aren't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Across Washington and Western.
Yeah.
right, so
I'm here.
diagonally
Yeah.
across.
It's on the corner of the plan.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to come up and watch as we're talking about this, that would be fine. So
See,
we'll give you want to give just a really
Yeah.
quick recap?
Yeah, so we did our testing over on this side. We tried to stay as far away from the well, as the wetlands back here as possible. We ended up, this is gonna be a fast geoflow system. It's advanced treatment. The groundwater here was really high. It was, we had redox at 14 inches, we had weeps at 18. They couldn't even run a perk test. The backhoe was getting stuck. So this is the best scenario we could come up with on this side of the property. There's going to be some variances, but if we moved over closer to where she lives over here, would have been her well buffer. And they also use this for planting and grazing. So that wasn't a good alternative. They also might someday subdivide off that lot, even though they own both of them.
Well, and also, right now, we don't give variances for new construction,
Right,
so
right.
not much would go on there.
So this is the same system as my partner designed. There's another one right here.
Oh, it's
That's a
Stonegate?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a fast geoflow, yeah, as well. So these two are only about, I don't know, 40, 50 feet apart. So We're keeping everything over in this area. You can't go this way if you got the wetlands back there. It's all wet here. This was all wet. I think it's the best alternative.
All the others well, so that's.
Opposite side.
And looks like you will be mounding a bit, right?
Yeah, even 2 feet, yeah. 2 or 3 feet, even with a fast system, so.
So, let's see, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
You're looking
okay,
at it
the
upside down,
dashed
but,
Are the existing contours, the
Yes.
dashed ones?
Yes.
And the solid are the proposed contours?
So say
So-
back here, it's 94 now,
Yeah.
it's going up to 96. So it's gonna be 2
Yeah.
feet up.
So, just a little bit of mounding here.
Correct.
More mounding near the rear, and the maximum is 2.5 feet or something?
Correct.
Yeah.
We're not grading within 5 feet of the lot. We did
and
get
this
down.
one over here blended in quite
It looks
well.
nice, yeah.
So-
Yeah, they did a nice. And then it's a wooded parcel just in here, there's nothing. So
Right.
There's no,
I see the question. We did get down 110 feet for these test pits, but it was just water just pouring. Good water, steaming water, 53 inches. So that, you gotta think 10 feet filled up.
Swimming hole.
Yeah. Right.
When I put my house in, right where the kitchen is, dug a test pit 7 feet deep. The water came up to the grass level and stayed there.
nice.
So I said, I need to do something to keep my basement dry.
Yeah.
And this fits in, Mark, I think you've talked about how the soils over here, and that the fields at Sherborn had something that drained.
Yeah, it
Blob
changes.
of sand there or
You
something.
can, the esker is on the other
Play where
side.
my house is, but we have more property than that, and it's sandy over here.
Yeah.
So nowhere on my 2 acres could I put a septic system. So my septic system is an easement on my other property, and there, works beautifully.
In fact, you'll see there's an extension off of Western Ave, and all their homes' septic systems are way in the backyard, based on the same situation. Very tight till material, and all of a sudden you hit sand.
So I'm going to keep our laser-like focus on time.
Yes, he's asking just as in a butter questions.
You have 5 feet.
Yep.
You saw it at 14 inches.
Yeah. What did the other people do to, that
Yeah,
looks
and this
so
one
nice?
wasn't mounded.
Yeah, that's why we had to put it, yeah.
So
What did the
this
other
wasn't
people do?
mounded, so that means
No, it was
it's.
Did they just do plantings, or they just?
Pretty much there.
Yeah.
Goats are very good.
Can't eat fast enough.
Yeah, and then they.
So this is the leach field here, and what does it look like in cross-section? Are these?
They're just, it looks like a garden hose. They're just little tube, it's a tube of like a garden hose. What's the diameter of it? And then 5/8. And then it just has these little emitters on it, but
So it distributes, spreads everything out.
these are, I mean, I laid it out like a traditional system, but you can actually wrap these around trees, go around them.
Fertilize the garden.
Yeah, just.
Shall we could go through the
Yeah, I think we should go through these.
things, and then if you have any other questions,
Yeah.
we can.
Do you happen to have a copy of that?
This plan? You can have it when I'm done. I didn't mean to say it like that, but no.
I mean, that seemed pretty friendly.
I like to read things like this.
Yeah.
Little
But
late reading.
It is interesting, there's an app
Yeah.
Okay.
that allows you
Okay.
to scan things. I could try to
Oh,
scan.
I don't know, I like the image of him sitting
I saw
around.
that it was 9 o'clock, and I didn't see Rika or Mark, so,
I spoke with her today, yeah, they
Yeah.
weren't gonna attend, yeah.
So-
thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so, again, we'll just walk through these. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 1.2?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you voting?
Yes. Aye, sorry.
We have a teen on the board. Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 5.1C?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 5.1D?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Interesting how this parallels so much with the previous site. Sieve analyses, not the same number of test pits, alternative technology, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01?
So moved.
Second?
And noting that this 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater has to deal with the innovative alternative technology and approved by the state. All those in favor? Aye. Motion to grant a variance to 8.02, and this is distance to groundwater.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion to grant a variance to 10.1BC, distance to the on-site well.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's Title V compliant, but Sherborn non-compliant. Okay.
And do we have a motion to grant a variance to 10.2 regarding distance to property line?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And now we have two, actually, wait a minute. One is labeled 1 and 3, but that could just be 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not missing something. All right. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.4051J?
So moved.
Second?
And I'll just note, this is the one with the special seal because it's so close to groundwater, just to keep the
Special
integrity
boots.
of the system. All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion to grant a variance to 15.4051. I can never tell. So
Aye.
is that an I? And the
Yeah.
other was a J? Okay.
Could see it hits the underline.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but, who knows? It's pretty close.
She's gone shenanigans on the J.
Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll close the hearing and mark are the plans ready for approval?
Ditto to the other one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it needs deed recordings for the garbage grinder and the innovative alternative technology.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plan subject to receipt of those two deed recordings?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're done, and see a present coming your way.
Yeah.
Do.
Look at this, you're
Darryl.
right on time.
Darryl, you can sign the second page.
I don't know. Read it to you.
I wouldn't do that if it's not related to the meeting. Please.
Perfect. All right.
Is it, as in you want it on official record, kind of thing?
I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Should we do, we have 4 minutes. Can we do the emergency well replacement, or is that too?
Which one would you like to do?
109,
Yeah.
109 Mason Hill.
Yeah, we can do 109.
109
Or 32
artists.
Maple,
Yeah.
yeah.
either
32?
one.
Either one, or do you want to do both?
Let's do 109
One-
first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like we got a better shot of 4 minutes.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
109 Mason Hill Road, came in as an emergency well approval. And conservation saw it also beginning of this week, actually. The plan was designed by GLM, and I approved it on Monday based on the urgency of it, and asked the board to ratify the approval based on the septic plan and well plan, I should say, as shown.
So
Out
what
of
happened?
curiosity,
What was the
yeah.
emergency?
Ellen took
They
the
were out of
call.
water. They
Okay.
were, yeah.
Oh, it seems
That's
like a
not
pretty
good.
good well
They were out of
emergency.
water.
Do we know
they were
what
very-
the depth of their well was? Was it a dug, old
We had
well?
a cesspool on the property.
know.
So it might be really old and
Yeah.
shallow,
Yeah, that's what I guessed.
because it has been really dry, so
Yeah.
that stinks. So do we have the information about how deep they're gonna be drilling the replacement well?
It'll be based on when they start seeking the water, but it has to be a deep well.
Yeah, like 500 feet or,
No, they can go 300 to 500.
Okay.
That's the norm.
Yeah.
They can go 900 feet on some properties.
well, there's all
And they have
that.
to get a certain yield.
Right,
so-
right, because there's a lot of pudding stone, on Nason Hill.
Oh.
So, I mean, that's the outcrops.
Oh, interesting. And it's also interesting to me that we've been through other drought periods and that seem more severe than what we're going through now. So, what's changing, or is it just increased development overall?
This
or-
property did have a well
Extension.
replacement plan approved several years ago. I think, like,
Okay, so maybe they were
2007,
seeing-
But they never,
Acting on it.
Okay.
They probably hope the numbers-
yeah.
Well, I'm sure rebound, and then you get a good
Yeah,
rain, and it
right.
probably rebounded, and,
Is this 132?
But also.
No, 109
but
Mason Hill
also
Road.
The drought, like it's cumulative drought, and all across the state, the aquifers are shrinking, so even though there have been worse droughts in the past, it's global warming and.
increased demand,
and
more
and it's
people.
Sort of cumulative drought probably is changing the,
Just lowering the water table
Yeah.
overall each time. So,
I don't
okay.
know. I'm not a hydrologist.
Well is downhill from the cesspool and 170 feet to the abutters septic system. So it's appropriately located.
The replacement well.
Yeah, the replacement one. And the appropriate distances to the driveway and the right-of-way and property line.
So is it a big parcel?
Yeah, it's on Mason Hill. It's, I
Yeah.
think, 2 acres.
Most of them are pretty big, so. That sounds reasonable to me.
All right, so
Can't
do we
live
have a
without
motion
water.
to ratify Mark's approval?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And 8:20. All right, so we have a variance hearing for a septic replacement at 29 Rockwood. And have we received all the green cards?
Yes.
Excellent, okay. Hi again.
Okay.
And are there any abutters?
This is the owner.
Okay. Hi, okay. So you're welcome if you want to come up and look on the plans while he's explaining the situation to us, you may. And since there are no abutters, we might kind of streamline
Okay.
the discussions.
29 Rockwood, I'm sure you're familiar with it, it's a dirt road, one of the few in town. Yeah, it's about halfway down, long driveway up the existing house up here. With some improvements, the well is way in the back. The existing septic tank is here, and there's some sort of leach field, we never did find out what it is. The house has been empty for quite a while, right?
Yeah, for years.
For
Yeah.
years.
We
Really?
purchased the lot 2 years ago. All vacated. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, the septic system has failed, so, as you can see, that this property is pretty steep. The 160
very
here,
steep, yeah.
down to 100. So,
Sledding.
yeah, so I think the spot that I felt was the levelest, would
Flattest,
have the
yeah.
easiest time getting the system in. So we did the testing here, and it was good material, groundwater was fairly deep. It's an existing 4-bedroom residence, and I designed it as a 4-bedroom septic with no increase in flow.
Okay.
So variances that we're looking for, nothing from Title V, but the usual sort of things that we need from the Sherborn rules and regs. We're asking for the section 801 for the bottom of the system to be at 4 feet above seasonal high groundwater instead of 5. That allows us to do these dry laid block walls. There's a limit of 4 feet on the height of those. Just with that, 5 feet would require us to do a poured plate concrete wall, which is ugly and considerably more expensive. So that does a fine job with that. Under 802 requires the system to be an area where groundwater is at least 5 feet below grade. You know, we didn't test any place else, but
You have a typo there.
I'm pretty sure. A typo?
Is less at least. It should get rid of is less.
Oh, I see, yeah. All right, so thank you. And then finally, under 10, to allow this system to be 10 feet off the property line versus 20, and that's this property line here. Again, there's nothing here but dirt road, but if we would go 20, we would have to move this driveway further up into the steeper slopes. It makes it impossible turning here. As it is, there was some, under the previous owners, some foray into the abutter's property for a turnaround, but as part of this project, we'll get rid of that as well.
So are you redoing the house? Was it a tear down?
It's gonna be a tear down, yeah, we're rebuilding.
But under the strange rules of the Sherborn Board of Health, we can't show the new house.
Until we have the septic.
It was a little sneak preview, Mr.
There
Engineer.
was, in fact, that plan's on file at the Board of Health.
That was a
You ready?
sneak preview of what they want, but
You're not gonna live there, you're just building a house.
Oh, no,
But
we're
so-
gonna move there, we already live on
Oh.
150 North Main.
Oh, I see.
But the house has a funky layout with the 3 kids that they're growing up, so we like this lot and.
No, I was wondering why you can't show it if it's already sold to the owner.
No, because we have to get the septic approval
they're
first.
asking
No,
for
no, but why does he
waivers.
need to show it if it's already, you own it and you're gonna live there?
Well,
No.
No,
He-
this
he-
is a-
Maybe I
the house that
misunderstood
will
what you're
exist doesn't
saying.
exist. We're
This is the
approving it for the
existing
old
house.
house.
You can't show it on the map,
I
on
can't
your
show the new
diagram.
house.
Got
Right.
it. Sorry, I was
Right.
like, what?
In this- and
I misunderstood
It's
what
gonna
you
go in
said. I
exactly
was
the same place
confused. I
as the old, on the
apologize.
same foundation.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
You'll be
We're not
seeing
allowed
it
to show
someday soon.
I believe Sherborn's the
On the
only
diagram.
city or town in Massachusetts that has that rule, but for whatever.
Well, the state
There aren't a
would-
lot of places that get as many houses torn down and replaced as we do. So I think
And
it
it's-
was really
well,
just
it's
to
a close
kind of
second.
keep
Well,
track.
yeah, but they also don't have
Preserves
the
the
private water
regulations.
and the private septic,
Yeah.
so it's
It's
just,
about
it's
the
a
endangered.
But
combo.
I mean, from a present standpoint, I would think you'd want to know what else is going on
At the
site
same time.
At the same time
Yeah.
that you're approving the site.
It was supposed to be strictly a replacement.
Right, but you don't want me to
Because of
think
the
of this as new
variances.
construction, do you?
Yeah.
No.
So then let's not think of it as new construction.
So stop arguing.
Right on
Matt.
target
That was a good one,
So Mark,
for this existing house.
could you talk a bit about the wall situation and how
There's
you
a-
feel about that?
Well, it's a replacement. The structure is shown on the plan on the upper right panel. You'll see it's a little bit in. Paul, can you point it out to them? And also it has an impermeable barrier next to it. It's right here.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering
It
if it
holds
was
up the
just,
impermeable barrier, and we've seen them around, and it's used quite often now that the state allows the 40 mil impermeable barrier. It's kind of like holds it up, basically.
okay.
This is on quite a steep hill, and as Paul said, if it went up any higher, he'd have to be probably putting in a structural engineer on a retaining wall, right? A structural wall.
For the driveway.
Yeah, well, for
Oh, and for the septic.
for this septic system here, because it comes down pretty
Yeah.
steep. But it levels off a little bit here where we tested.
Right, yeah.
I remember testing that day with you, Paul.
It's probably the one level spot in the entire lot.
Yeah. So it fits, it works.
Okay. All right, and the others seem pretty straightforward to me. Anybody else have questions?
So do you know, just out of curiosity, so the first variance request says it's basically about that you want to install the system 4 feet above groundwater instead of 5, right? And the second one says that you're not meeting the at least 5 feet of natural grade above high groundwater. Do you know, so,
Because groundwater was about 3 feet below grade.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, some people put that explicitly, like where it was, and this one, it was just implied, but
Yeah.
so I was
Well,
just
one
curious.
spot it was 58 inches,
Mm-hmm.
so, but we
Yeah,
used the worst
36 is the max that you have.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right.
But I'll take that.
Any other comments from you?
Yeah, no,
Mark,
it's
on
just
this one?
easy, like, then you have it explicitly articulated, yeah.
Anything else from you, Mark?
No, Paul redid the plan showing, took the house off, it made a couple other corrections. We reviewed the plan verbally yesterday, I believe, Paul, or the
Yeah.
day before. And I did ask that you just show the property line distance.
Yeah, they're on there.
Is it, where is it? Oh, there it is, thank you. There it is, I didn't see that.
You know, I'm calling that 10, in reality, it's actually 15, because we
Yeah.
always refer to the edge of the
The
leaching.
edge of the leaching area.
In case I use the edge of the retaining wall.
So you're more conservative, so.
All right,
Yeah.
good.
The
Okay.
wall will be closer, though, just so you know, to the property line, but again, the
The wall will be 10
regulation-
feet,
Yeah.
and, but the
The
leaching
wall,
field.
the wall won't be 10 feet to the property
Yeah,
line.
the
It
wall's
will
10
be,
feet. This is a 30 scale.
yeah, I know, I just went to it. The wall, from what I can see, Paul, is about 6 feet, 6, 7 feet. But again, it's not the requirement. The requirement is the leaching fields.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I wanted you to show the arrow there, not here, but that's,
Yeah,
okay.
well, there's so much stuff on this tiny.
That's
plan.
okay. No, I
Again,
agree. It's a tight
It's
area.
interesting, because this is a 30 scale, you usually see a 20 scale, but to get the entire lot on, or a lot of the lot on. There was some talk early on of doing the house up here.
Okay.
Sufficient.
All right, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 8.02?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.2.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so I'll close the hearing, and are the plans ready for approval?
They are conditional to the garbage grinder, and I don't believe there's, well, you're using Elgin, infiltrator high
Infiltrator,
caps.
so there's no.
Yeah, there's no, I just want to grab the plan, so it's conditional to the deed recording for the garbage grinder.
Okay.
No, you can't have that.
Should we sign now?
What's that?
And
We
you know
sign
what,
it now?
even if your
Oh, you
system
can't,
was
you have to
big,
get that-
they're not a
you can
good
sign
idea,
it tonight, but
because
you have to get
they
that
clog
deed
up
recorded.
systems, so,
Yeah.
so you're lucky that you're being
Yeah.
restricted. Not tempted.
Yeah, we've been in Sherborn for 8 years now.
Oh, okay.
So,
Just so the board knows, they do have building applications in.
yeah.
I spoke to you. I explained to them, no, the septic system has to go in,
Right.
attached to the existing house,
And then,
and then that gets a certificate. That means it has to be completed with the final grades, the grass, the connection, well, mature growth can be a condition, but at least the tie-in to the house. Once all that's done, a certificate's issued, that's when the new house can be, the replacement house can be proposed.
Could I ask maybe at this point that we do the same thing we did on the house on Western Avenue across the street from, he said that we build it, but we don't actually put the line to the house, put that after the house is.
Yeah, I was wondering, you
Done.
mentioned using the same foundation, or no?
No, and we were thinking initially, but we were afraid that because there's so much ledge here, if we're starting to break it, we're gonna compromise the existing foundation, so we decided against
But
using
it's the same footprint.
the safe footprint.
and you're not doing any ledge destruction?
But I think that's a totally separate, like, we have a septic before us.
All right.
And so I think we need to vote on the septic before us. I think your question is a fair one, but the details, unless the
Yeah.
details inform the question of, do we have to attach to the house? If that doesn't further a goal of the board, is that something we can weigh in on this, or do we need to weigh in?
So, right, part of it, if they were going to
Yeah, while you're
use the.
addressing it, it's be
Yeah.
a good time to address it one
Yeah.
way or the
Right.
other.
Or sequencing?
Have we had any trouble when we have allowed people, given that no one's
It's
living
usually,
there now?
it's
Is that
usually
the
based on
case?
safety or practical location, where on any property, we dealt with one down near Perry Street, which was Prospect, which was based on the issue of the house falling in on them.
Right.
And we allow them to
The
go
other
to a
thing I
certain
think that
point.
was a concern is that we had two houses on the property at the same time, both of them occupied. That, we ran into that on Holmes Duckworth Road.
Oh, when you had to switch one to the other.
Yeah, so, but
So my concern here is that if they connect and then they're destroying this, it could somehow damage
Right.
yeah,
You know, the-
it'll destroy all of it.
the, and that's okay, you could cut it, but if it starts destroying the connection between the tank, I don't know.
And so do we sort of feel like it may be worth considering, given the property constraints with the steep,
Is the property occupied?
it is not occupied.
Yeah, so that's another opportunity
Yeah.
to
'Cause it
maybe
doesn't,
make that as a condition of property
Oh,
not get
that-
occupied.
That's a good idea, that
Yeah.
remains unoccupied.
But I actually think it is relevant to, especially since you're going to live there, for you to know that there are risks associated with crushing the rock for your own drinking water.
Okay,
I mean,
we'll
you
get
should-
to that, but right
Yeah,
now.
that's not what
this
they're
is
talking
the
about.
right
I
time and
understand
place.
it's not what we're talking about, but it might be something that you might want to discuss with us at another time, since you're going to live there.
But I would say for the question at hand of,
Yeah.
Sorry?
Say that the
Their
well
well's upgrading
is
it
about 150 feet away.
uphill.
Good.
So that, you know, that.
That's
will-
great.
they won't
Yeah.
need them.
but so it sounds like based on the condition of the house remaining unoccupied, and given the site constraints with the steep grades, that
It might make more
it may
sense to
make
not.
sense to have
yeah.
an exception to the requirement to hook up to the existing structure.
Okay, so, Mark, it
I
should
wouldn't
go
have a
through
problem
the
with that based
field
on-
and the tank?
The tank has to go in, and the field, and the covering, and everything that would normally be required except for the building pipe, but it'd be capped at the tank, so nothing can get into the tank.
Yeah, okay.
So you'd have to either cap it or put a pipe up so far and cap it.
Or maybe not even start it. Leave that hole closed in the tank.
Yeah, you could do that, or if you want to put the inlet tee in at that time, you could cap it. Cap
A
it where you
stick up
think you...
almost?
Is it, what's the issue? Is it going to be an elevation issue, that the house is going to be
In
higher?
this particular case, we need a drop manhole because the grades are so steep.
Okay, so you're going to be coming back with a drop manhole for that building pipe. So when you come to the point of having the request for the replacement house, that's when you could draw in the, bring that old plan back maybe, and...
Okay. I mean, that drop manhole's on this plan as well. The only thing that changes is from.
So you don't want to do the drop manhole either?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I'd say everything from the septic tank inlet out to the field would be required, and the building pipe could be exempted if no one occupies the
That's
house.
great.
Okay. So Ellen, did you get?
No, I don't understand.
If no one occupies the
need-
house, no building
No
pipe
one,
is required.
no one occupies the house,
No building pipe shall be required.
no.
Or no
Building pipe slash
connection to the
connection,
house, that
right?
was said.
Connection.
And just so the board knows, you don't have a pump system here either, so there's not pumps going into the house, but each case presents different scenarios. But this case, it seems reasonable to make that allowance. That's up to the board. That would be up to you to
I think
allow
I'm
me to
comfortable
issue
with
this.
that, because it's
Comfortable
going to
with
be unoccupied.
Okay, and so do we have a motion to authorize them to not connect to the house with the provisions that Mark described?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, just to the other issue. So, Mark, I was going to ask you, when it comes time for the building permit coming to us, if you could talk to them about ledge issues, because there is a risk to their,
And do we
well,
wanna
and it
discuss
doesn't
30
have to deal with the height, because stuff moves
Do we wanna
underground.
discuss
and then it's-
32 Maple Street's emergency well?
Yes, and then maybe you'll hear some.
That's a good segue.
Yep.
So, you just said there was, do you have a motion to authorize the septic to not be connected to the house?
Oh, and then did we not actually?
And then you
vote?
haven't
Oh,
voted.
okay.
Oh, I thought we
We did
did.
vote. We did
Yeah, we
vote.
did. We
No,
just
you
voted.
did.
I seconded.
I'm going to
it.
argue with
Oh, I
Ellen. So
voted.
moved?
And second.
Second.
All those in
Favor?
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
She does it,
thought we
she
did
does the
vote it.
minutes, otherwise she'll put stuff in
We're just
there.
moving so fast, Ellen, breakneck speed.
All right, 32
Okay.
32 Maple Street, emergency well replacement.
Yes, and this has to deal with the well that's being replaced because there was ledge disruption near them that contaminated their well, we think.
Okay.
I do have to say,
Yeah,
to let Mark know, artists submitted revised plans today.
I went by your
Just-
house on the way in, and I
just-
said, there's no well rig out there yet. And I was
Just, I mean,
like, So
Like
just
literally-
a
now,
couple hours,
what did she submit?
that one of the
What?
variances won't be needed anymore.
What's that, Ellen?
One of the variances will no longer be needed.
Oh, is it the one about the distance of the driveway? or the,
Yes, she mentioned that she'd,
It's further from the driveway.
oh, okay.
Yeah, there was, good, there was no need for, let me just double check. Oh, yeah, she went from 12 to 30, good.
So wait, where's she moving it?
I can show you both, actually. I just wondered, see them, I know it's not very damaged, so this time I'm gonna go on this side.
Yay.
That's the new plan, and this is the old plan. They moved, this was 12 feet to the driveway. Moved the well a little bit this way.
So now it's 30 feet,
So
okay.
instead of 12 feet, the well's now here, right next to this crease right here. It's right there now. So and they're removing the existing well, and it's still 20, that was 27 feet off the property line. The new well they're proposing is the correct 25 feet, that's the minimum, maximum.
So what variance?
Minimum.
There, oh, it's for the
Yeah.
distance from the septic,
My
right?
mind said, wait a minute, that's them, yes.
So is the only variance the distance from the septic? What was it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, it's 105, but that's 105.
105 versus the needed 125.
Right, because it's uphill.
Yeah, we're not sure if it's sand or till, so we always assume it's till. Unless we know it's in an esker, then we can say it would need to be 150, but I've tested around here. I haven't seen eskers and gravel, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they don't have that type of soil here. And this has been tested too. It is not sand. So I'd recommend the waiver as requested. The one waiver now, for the distance of the proposed well to the existing on-site solar source.
okay, and
system.
the waiver only has to do with their own property.
That is
No one
correct.
else is affected by this waiver. So, do we have a motion to grant the requested variance?
So moved.
Second?
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I actually have a question, but it's not related to this case. It's a general question about emergency well.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with an emergency well and notification of abutters, if a resident talks directly to a neighbor and the neighbor writes something to the town, does that help the neighbor? Does that help the
It would.
property owner? It does, you
If
still,
the
we still,
neighbor
we
said,
still have
"I'm
to
okay
follow
with it."
our procedure.
It
because
helps,
it's-
but they still need to follow.
Yeah, so we still have to follow our procedure. But the question is, does that save time
Oh, no.
in the end?
No.
Does you
no,
still have to have the
because you
same
still
abutter
have to have
notification
the
and green
same
cards?
abutter
trying to say.
notification per the regulations.
Right, but you still can do it.
If she
You're allowed
wants
to
to, but
do it.
it's
Doesn't
not gonna.
save you anything.
It's not
Yeah.
gonna save her anything, so what's the point?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I was just
I
asking.
can see what
That's why
you're
I was
trying to
asking.
say, would they need the
Because
waiver?
if-
If you're asking, could they just do that instead of doing
No.
the formal notification?
No, we
they
have to
couldn't.
follow our procedure. But
Right.
we, because it's an emergency, we sometimes, the sequence of events is permitted because it's an emergency.
If,
So,
for this
comfort
case,
level.
I
because they
know,
wouldn't be able to do it.
well, Artis did ask me, she wanted to move the well closer to the
Abutter.
lot line.
Oh.
I told her that would mean it would
Then you
have
have
to
to
be a formal
notify.
hearing.
Yeah.
And she'd have to notify the abutters.
And
She asked me, could she just go to her abutters and get a letter saying, that? And I
Right, but you
said,
can't.
Yeah.
no, you have to, it would
Follow the
be a
process of
formal
notification.
hearing, and she would have to notify.
But I was curious about, not about her, but about other situations. There's some discussion about another case.
I mean, this particular.
She didn't even
She
need any
didn't need-
variances, yeah.
For wells,
Right.
it doesn't.
No,
Let's see if I can kind
I'm
of
not
rehash it. So I
talking
think your
about-
question is,
My question
As
is,
it relates to abutters.
when a person has an emergency and they just are out of courtesy talking to their neighbor,
their neighbor writing a letter removes no requirement and
Right.
speeds
Yeah.
up nothing. And
Right.
so everything that would happen in terms of needing a variance or notification
Right.
would
It
need
would
to
still
happen in
apply.
the
Still.
sequence. So
Yeah.
they certainly could do it, but it would save them no steps, no times,
Right.
and it
Right.
would replace
And-
nothing.
And also, if it's an emergency well replacement, it's not something like that the board would typically dilly-dally on. I mean, we understand
Right, no, I
the
understand that.
necessity, so.
Because we can't do some of those procedures, so it's only useful if there's a,
But I think what you could say is like, if I'm the
Not
abutter
useful.
and I'm not
Right.
getting the opportunity to participate at a hearing, my neighbor came and told me, here's what I'm
Right.
doing, and they asked me to write a letter, and then they say something different to the board. I'm not present or participatory in that if it replaced anything, and so I think that's the issue, is to give them notification of the point of consideration.
the only benefit is if there's a liability issue between the two neighbors.
Right.
Yeah, but
so
then
it
they
For
might
their
not
own
approve
records.
it
No, no, no,
anyway,
I'm
like,
saying, no,
yeah.
for their own
To
records.
just sort of say, I talked to you about this on
Yeah.
March 10th.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I think we get what may affect the board's decision more on emergency replacements is whether there's a negative comment from a neighbor
Right.
versus a positive comment, right? Because if people are silent, they don't come, that's a positive comment in a sense, or a neutral
No
comment.
concerns were raised.
So I think it's more the negative comments that
Yeah.
have
I think
influence
what I
on
was
what we're
talking about,
deciding.
what I was thinking about more is our board, if a neighbor has if it's documented in the case record that a neighbor approves of something, it does protect us for liability.
It would make my comfort level, if I'm approving that emergency
But
well.
it doesn't change
My
the
comfort level
events,
would be
the sequence
better
of
if I
events.
did see a letter. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt. So I like that idea. It would make my comfort level better, but again, I always remind the applicant that, at the time of you're doing this at your own risk, and you still need to go through the process of a hearing. But it would definitely bring a different comfort level to the person requesting the emergency well, as well as myself.
My
But it wouldn't
question's
take
coming
away the
from our
risk. Like, they would still say,
Oh, no, the risk
there's
would
still
still-
exactly the same risk. You would say, this would help me close my eyes on the pillow better that night, but it wouldn't change the process steps.
That's correct.
And if it was only
No,
one
no, no, I
neighbor and not
wasn't-
all the
I didn't
neighbors.
think we would change the process. My question is based on a question of liability that had come up.
I don't
And
think we're in a
was-
position to answer a question of liability.
Well, I was just asking about, that's why I was asking our agent. It's not about this case.
But, okay.
For emergency,
But I think in
Procedure of
terms
the
of
town.
liability, if the well were non-compliant or if there are issues with it, then that would be the risk that Mark described for the property
The
owner who
risk
drilled
does
the
fall
well,
on
that
them,
you'd say.
by the way
we-
it's
we-
explained.
Like, we can't approve that well because of X, Y, or Z implications that came out at the hearing, then I think that sort of addresses the concern of like, what happened, the sort of if-thens.
And is the procedure that we use for emergency wells similar to what other towns do?
Correct.
Okay, I see we have some folks with us. Are they, any of the issues?
Don't know who
I
they.
think we have an
Take them?
8:40.
Are you here for a
Yeah.
particular issue? Because we can.
We have, there's an appointment at 8.
8:40.
8:40, oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. 111 Woodland Street? Okay. He's next, then maybe you. Okay. All right, so we have a discussion about an additional well. Okay, the well for irrigation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Are you in a butter then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 104 Woodland.
Okay.
I was like, wait a minute, I know you. Is this the only plan we have, or do you have something? Because it doesn't show any of the abutters, it doesn't
No,
show
that's the only plan
anything.
we have, but this.
It doesn't even show the septic.
Because my well is right across the street. That's-
No, it doesn't matter, though, they
Because
didn't,
you want to see the larger
yeah,
plan.
well, right, and so what
like
about the
question of setbacks.
abutters wells, and you have a requirement to show also where your existing septic is, because there's numerous setback
The
requirements.
engineer did put us definitive, though.
Yeah, but he didn't show it. Yeah.
Mark should have it in the file. That,
What's that again?
he just asked,
I believe that there was a certified copy of the plot plan that was.
but that's.
Yeah, but it doesn't, all
Like across
I'm
the
saying,
street.
like, typically, people will show us, there's requirements about what the setbacks are from all wells in the area, so that would mean not just your existing well, but the abutters wells, as well as, like, the setbacks from the
Septic
septic system,
systems.
and that's not even shown on this map. So it's great that the engineer said it's further away than all that, but it's not, nothing's depicted. So it makes it kind of.
And it would need a PE stamp certifying that, and
He sent a separate thing, but it's not on the plan. All he said
Mark.
is, I certify there's no
Yellow
wells. leaching."
folder?
This.
I'm looking through it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
then I-
this is,
Everything we
this
have.
this is another one. now.
Yeah, and this is a certified land surveyor,
Oh,
not
I
a
found one more. There's,
PE, is that?
yeah, no, it's a surveyor, that's true.
Yeah, so,
We don't require, it can be the well driller, a
Yeah,
surveyor,
I'm not,
engineer, someone that knows how to recognize
right,
septic systems.
but all I'm saying is, all this shows literally is the existing well and the proposed well, okay, on this plan. It doesn't show any of the other information, and what the regulations say is that for any irrigation well, you have to basically show us that there's not going to be an impact on the quantity or quality of any other wells. So something that would make me feel a lot better is, okay, I don't even know where the abutters' wells are. So if I have a sense of like, okay, well, I see where they want to put this irrigation well, and I see where the abutters' wells are, I can start to make some informed decisions about, is it likely or not that there's going to be an impact on the quantity or quality of the abutters' wells? And that's right in the regulations. And then also things like distance from the existing septic. They didn't show your septic system on this plan.
Not on this one they did. On this
So
one,
on the one we didn't get?
this is the one that they have.
Oh, okay, okay, see, we didn't get that. So, okay, so that's plenty far away from
So there-
their septic.
a couple issues, even though you'd be calling it an
You can put that
irrigation
on
well.
the table, I'm sorry you
Yeah,
didn't see
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Still
So-
has to qualify as a drinking water well. You
Right.
don't have a separate category necessarily for irrigation. And then the other thing, and we don't have a regulation prohibiting irrigation
Yeah.
wells, but maybe
It
someday we
wasn't on
will
the first
because
one, put it in there.
they're not a great idea.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble getting enough water now,
Well, I think-
so we wanted to talk just about that because
Yeah.
it's an issue of, if you're having trouble drawing water, you're just sticking another straw into the same pool of water underground, and that, you're taking out more, and it could be affecting others. So
I would
like
love to
to see
kind
if
of
there are
parse
other
this out, 'cause
ways.
I think
So-
that a piece of this is that there are discussions at prior meetings where you weren't here to participate. And so there's a piece where these are the questions we've been thinking about and talking
Yeah.
about. And so you kind of walk into it like, wow,
I
I am
didn't-
sure walking into it. So I think the kind of big concerns we have for the plan is the point that Lisa raised, which is that in not seeing the other wells makes it tricky. I think the point that Darrell was making is that while the well may be used for irrigation, the requirements for the well in terms of the water quality are the same as were it to be used for a home, though it's not being used for a home. And so that's why the sort of questions and concerns about that piece arise. And then the last piece is really, and this is the part I struggled with in my own thinking about it, is you sort of describe the like in the engineer letter, there's a 2.5 gallons per minute that your baseline production, which is proven inadequate.
For the
So-
domestic well.
Well,
Yeah.
so I'm not characterizing anything as failing, but just like to kind of piggyback on what Gerald said. So right now you're saying, I've got a 4-bedroom house. So if you say, how much water would a 4-bedroom house typically use? So the average
300
individual
gallons per
uses like
day.
80 to 100 per person, or what we do for the Sherborn regulations is I think 150 gallons per bedroom per day. So the way we sort of think about.
It's 300,
Is it 300?
yeah. 300 per gallons per day per bedroom is what I read.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah.
So that would be 1,200 gallons per
Right,
day.
which is about a gallon per minute. I mean, that's the minimum amount
And
that
so
you would want.
part of what just leaves one ambivalent, although I don't think they have a regulation prohibiting it, which I think is Darrell's point, is that in an hour of irrigating, you're sort of using the same amount of water we would expect your household to use in a typical day. And so when we raised the concerns about your engineers telling us you need 10 gallons per minute to irrigate, we're saying, gosh, I'm concerned because that means in 2 hours, you're using essentially the same amount of water that you would use in a day for the rest of your household. And if you're having challenges with production, part of, yeah.
Gallons per
Would be
minute.
600 gallons per hour, and in 2 hours you would consume 1,200 gallons, which for 300 gallons per bedroom would be
Is about the
1,200
same
gallons
as
per
what the
day.
minimum requirements for the supply.
And so when we
for-
sort of raise the concern about the supply side, which I think
Yeah.
Darrell was raising, it's
Yeah.
just the fact that if
More
you're pulling
straws.
that kind of water out, that really can pose significant risks to your own well, and depending on the location of other wells, those same performance pieces. I think what we discussed last time was the question of whether the impact on your own well would qualify for the board consideration that says we need to prove that a new well won't hurt an old well, and if both wells are owned by the same property owner on the same property, if you impair the performance of your own well, does that count? Since you would imagine if I did, I'd turn off my irrigation. And so trying to figure out how that regulation applies if the performance issues could be on your own well, which is the closest well to you. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you could also think that when we bought the house 2 years ago, we inherited a well. I'm being told by the well professional that that well is, the longevity of that well is a question. And perhaps, since I'm looking to get a permit for a second well, that well, knowing now there needs to be allowed to be, have to be septic regulated,
Yeah.
that could actually act as a backup plan, should my primary well fail.
You can't, but you can't have more than one potable
Who said
domestic.
I can't have more than one?
I thought for
tying
one
into your
dwelling
house.
per, one potable well per dwelling, I thought is what it said. Isn't it?
I read it today.
Yeah, so,
Or you make it a public water supply.
or the other option,
Are you opposed to me getting a well?
No. My
We're
only
just-
issue is
no,
the
no,
bill
no.
doesn't show in that plan, and it's like 151 feet from where that shows. Just pacing it off today. I don't know, we need the survey to do the math.
Yeah, I mean, it would, that's why I'm just saying, it would be great to just sort of see it all in one picture.
Ironically, that was the delay that, remember, that was the delay that the engineer couldn't provide you a certified lot plan because he had to go out and see where the abutters wells were. So the fact that we don't have that is baffling to me.
Yeah, like, it seems like he found them, but then he just didn't put them on the map. So it could be a very simple fix for him that he has the information, but for whatever reason, he just didn't show it on the submitted plan. So it might be a very modest, effort for him to do that. So it's just, I've never seen someone, say that I'm certifying that it's this distance away from everything, but then just not show it on the map, so. And I guess, so I have two questions. One is, if you can put a new well on your property, that it has to be adequate for potable purposes, like we just said anyway, we're gonna make you, pass all the same tests in terms of quality that you would have to pass for a potable supply, and you can get 10 gallons per minute from that new well, how about just use that new well? Just abandon your current well, which seems inadequate and questionable anyway, and just have that one new well, which should be adequate for both supplying your domestic and water.
But then doesn't that run into the 17, I think this is the other emergency well, but the wells used for drinking water and domestic water supply shall
Shouldn't
not
be
be used to
used for-
provide water for groundwater heat pumps, not applicable, water
Right,
cooling,
yeah.
no, or irrigation.
I guess, I mean, when you say irrigation, what do you really mean?
Well, right, so it's a
What's that
question of,
mean?
the-
Yeah.
like, I think what you're actually describing is I'm watering my trees, or like I'm not watering a farm.
Right.
I'm irrigating my property the way many people do in terms of domestic trees. And so I
Right.
think that's, the other question is, I think I see lots of really nice, lovely green lawns in Sherborn.
Yep.
And so lots of people are watering their lawns. And so it's a question of, are we confabulating the language about irrigation as used by your well digger versus I'm watering my trees?
Right, I
And
think-
is that the intent of the regulation? I read it more as, this is not intended for your house water to be your farm water.
Right, and unfortunately, there isn't a definition for irrigation here, but my sense is that they were thinking like
Large-scale
a
irrigation.
farm, like a farm irrigation, that you're never gonna be using like what Silverwood Farm or something has to do for all of their, acres of planting. You're not talking about
Were
that,
you
right?
here when irrigation?
17, I wasn't here for it, but it's been many years I've heard this discussion, different scenarios, and Ellen, you have too. So don't smile at me like that. But 17.6 was put there so that water would be used mostly for
For-
domestic purposes.
Correct.
And that's why if you want an irrigation well, you have to seek the Board of Health's approval. It's for water conservation. They don't want it for air conditioning. They don't want it for heat pumps.
Right.
Unless the board can look at it and say, water conservation measures may be in place or may not. And the same discussion we're having tonight has been had before, where the board insists that one well, one property, one dwelling, and if you wish to use it for irrigation, and it's marginal, then drill a new well and abandon the old well. This
that's-
goes back to Dr. Sylvia Bruce, and that was back when I first started. And if you look back in the minutes, you'll see that same historical review, that it's been said over and over, and the reason is there's not an infinite amount of water, and we're seeing more issues as we see more droughts. We were talking about that earlier tonight.
But I think,
And-
I guess what I struggle with, so I totally share those
Yeah.
concerns and raise some of them
That's where the
too.
board was.
But I think what I struggle with is, I think there's a piece where using this to fill a pool, not enthusiastic about.
No.
But using this to water your plants feels like that is routine practice in Sherborn, that
And-
is common, and that,
And that's part of potable water supply, like people have sprinklers on their
They have
lawn,
no
they use it for
problem.
that all the time.
but.
They allow that.
So I think, to me, that's not, I think we're saying is, it sounds like you could put a well that has adequate supply for all your needs, one well, instead of keeping your existing well, which sounds borderline, and certainly not adequate to do the watering you want and some of these other things, as well as supplying your domestic supply.
So if I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that I get a new well.
Or just consider perhaps the proposed
I
well that
think-
you're talking about, as long as it meets all of the
I think our
setback
goal is to always
requirements.
figure out, like, how do we get to a
Yeah.
yes, and what does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah.
Because everybody comes before starting a no, that's why they have to come before the board, and so what we're trying to do isn't to say, you have to do this, it's us trying to brainstorm, like, what might a yes look
What's the
like.
easiest path?
And so I think our points
Well,
here,
I think the most, the easiest path, the most conservative path is to put a second well in case the first well fails.
Ye-
Well, no, you can just, I don't feel it. If I'm willing to pay for a new well to be proactive, if my second well, that's my initial well that I bought 2 years ago with the house, is gonna fail.
Well, if you know that, why aren't you just gonna, just put in that new
I'm
well?
being proactive in case it does, so I have a backup there that should it fail, then I have an adequate well to now becomes primary.
but I think, like, our point would be,
One dwelling, one domestic
But
well.
I'm not abusing the water system, I'm not.
But
But
if
it's
I.
a shared resource.
Yeah, so that's
That's-
the rub.
Thank you, I was gonna
And what the
bring this
water
up.
is
So what
being
you're telling me
used for.
tonight is that I can only have one well.
No,
No,
that's
we're
not what we're
literally-
telling you. No,
So I'm
I said
gonna-
domestic
hey,
water
we're-
supply
so
well.
I'm gonna ask
You're
you,
telling me
excuse me,
that I can only have
excuse
one
me.
well.
No, that's not what I
I
said.
need you to pause.
Yeah.
I totally get that you're
Yeah.
getting frustrated. I think fundamentally we share the same goal, and I definitely hear that you're frustrated. I get that. I think that us getting more frustrated with each other is vanishingly unlikely to achieve any of the goals that we share. And so what I would say is, I think for us, what we're trying to do is to say, we've had a Board of Health for a really long time. And so one of the things we have to fall back on is, what have we said time and again? Because if we change that regulation each time, or we change that approach each time, that gets really complicated, because then you say, you said this for 20 years, and then you said it was different here, and what made it different here, and is that different every time? And so when you're thinking about that, that's a bigger choice than what you do on your property and your well. I think that the.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
can just add to that, Matt, too, and again, I'm going back on historical reviews, and the other issue, and Darrell, you just came out with it, but it got dropped quick, was the shared resource.
That's
And-
where I'm
And so what's happening is, if you're putting in, and not against your idea, But if you're putting in 2 wells per property, that resource is, the
But I think-
aquifer is getting.
But that part I don't know that I totally agree with, because if we say,
Well, that's
we're
the-
putting in a new well and it can do 10 gallons a minute, that's draining the same 10 gallons a minute
But
that would be
it
drained.
may be closer to someone else's aquifer.
But I
That-
think,
Or what?
but I think
That's
those,
why they prevented, whenever people wanted new wells, and they've heard that argument, and people do not want to give up their second well. It's
Right.
very difficult to give up, and I respect why you're saying that, because we've heard it over and over. But the board, I think, also was looking at, each lot shouldn't be pushing too far out into another property to grab water from the aquifer.
And if I can
Which
just
can
add
go across the
something,
street and that's why I think it's difficult to give up, it's like having a crutch, it's difficult to give that up, because you'll have 2 until that happens, but the board always said abandon your well.
and I think it changes, for some people, the perception of the availability of water. For example, you always see the signs during drought periods, people put up, hey, I have a special well for watering, but we get, and now with recent droughts and cumulative
2 emergency
droughts,
wells
over
tonight.
time, we've had a lot of people who've had to come in because their wells are no longer producing, because there's greater draw and there's general lowering of the ground. Let me just finish, and then I'll give you a chance. So it is an issue, and we're seeing it all the time, and I don't know how many new wells we've been approving lately because of this problem of people used to have a producing well, doesn't produce anymore. So we are concerned about that, because that's vital to the, I'm not going to be that long. Things like people then watering in the middle of the day. Worst time to be, if you're trying to really irrigate something and you're spraying water all over, there's a lot of evaporation going on, so it's very inefficient. But people are thinking, oh gee, but I've got all this extra water, why not? It's just there, but it is a loss. Drip irrigation might be better, also wouldn't have the same demands on gallon per minute to be able to do that. And also, to establish plants takes some time, but after that, they can usually pretty much function on their own. And irrigating all the time is detrimental because it promotes shallow root growth rather than deep root growth, which is what's going
But
to
I think
carry
right now,
plants through
like,
that. So those are the
Trying to
kinds of
use
things.
patterns, like
are
that's
there-
it. Like the part I struggle, like I totally hear that, and I swear to God I will stop, because we asked you to hold it, but I want to be clear that we don't know how you're using it. I think there are lots of ways that you see what we're thinking about and what we're worried about. I want to acknowledge that I don't think we have a
Right.
footprint to say, this is how you're allowed to use it, it's your well. I think.
We
you
want to
keep your-
explore options,
Right.
like maybe there are other ways. A holding tank, right? When you're sleeping at night, it's filling up the tank, then that gets used for
But it-
watering. There might just be other approaches.
But I think that's
that
sort of
would work.
separate from us.
I know it
about,
is.
like, what the rules are, and if it follows the rules, I
I
think
get that,
that's-
but maybe someone would be interested in not drilling a whole new well and just having a tank, that then you draw from. Be cheaper.
I think my point is, I'm not looking to use necessarily more water than I am today with one well. Collectively, with the 2 wells, I would be using the same amount of water. Does that make sense? It's just that
I
the
hope-
second well.
I would hope so.
Would be, I'm being proactive, should the first well, at some point in time, fail. I think it's 20 years, and the gentleman, John Larson, from Well Water Connection, is suggesting that your well is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So the prudent thing to do would be to put a second well in, and again, I'm not out to exhaust the water supply. I'm simply probably going to use the exact same amount of water, it just might be with 2 systems rather than 1 system. Does that make sense?
Okay. I mean,
that's
there were earlier things that talked about
Yeah.
that you didn't have as much water as you wanted coming from your well.
Right,
So
that's
it
what-
sounds like it
yeah.
would be more than you're currently using.
Yeah, I mean, this,
Well, it's because we put in plantings, and we put in, so.
yeah. And I guess, and I'll just put this out there, my concern is, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what you're proposing, and I'm totally open to listening to things, and like I said, if I had a little bit more information, I'd feel even better, because then I would have a picture in my head of like, okay, I understand where the other people's wells are, because it's not just obviously your property, it's the abutters and sharing the aquifer. My concern is that if we go ahead and approve this, and, a second well at 10 gallons per minute, because that's just the number that was put in this report. What's to stop everybody in town from saying, oh, you know what, like, it would be great to have a supplemental well to just water my garden or I'm gonna build a pool and fill the pool. And then the compounding effect of that is that we have less and less water for people to drink. And I'm not, like I said, your particular impact could be innocuous, and like you're saying, it's a marginal increase of what you're using now. So I'm not casting aspersions on you. I'm just imagining that with the demand growing higher and higher, global warming, and, maybe people looking at things, trying to be more sustainable by using indigenous plants, or like Daryl says, once things are established, generally they need less water because their roots are going deeper, and they're, it's just not as necessary as when they're first becoming, planted. So I guess that's the part I'm struggling with. Like, if we keep saying yes, then eventually, we had 2 emergency drinking water requests tonight, just tonight, because people's wells ran dry. And I'm just wondering, are we kind of creating, a cascading problem?
I think to answer your question, I think every situation is different. It is. I think every homeowner has a different set of circumstances.
Right, and we have to,
Listen.
we try to consider all
Yep.
that, and we
So-
try to be as consistent as we can, even though there are lots of variations. And actually, also building on what Lisa just said, so we issue emergency well replacements, and they get done pretty quickly. So if you started to see that your current well was failing, you don't need a huge lead time
Yeah.
for a replacement well. That could happen relatively quickly, given all the measurements are done and that sort of thing. So
So you're-
in
so
terms
you're-
of being
you're
proactive,
suggesting that perhaps instead of being proactive in getting a second well, that I have to wait until it actually is ready to fail, and then I go and come before you.
well, I think the idea that your well is ready to fail is speculative, so I can't
I'm just-
really,
Again, I'm just being proactive.
I know, but it's speculative too, so.
Well, you have a letter from someone that's been in the business for 23 years, that's not speculative, he's telling you what's going on. So it's,
Well, he was more arguing on why he didn't feel that modifying the existing well was a good idea because it might damage the well. And we have lots of people who do deepening and what have you of wells, but it sounds like his preference would be to not do that, and I understand the reasons that he explained. But that, to me, was, I don't know, did anyone else get that impression? That's how I
Yeah, I don't.
interpreted it.
And then,
Let me finish that topic, I have 2 questions.
and then the last thing I'll say is that plan shows proposed barn right next to where the proposed new well is, and
no, we've moved it, the proposed one.
so are you gonna be building additional buildings on the property? And what is gonna supply the water for them?
There's minimal water design.
Okay, I just,
No, it's not we don't have a working, you probably know, we don't have a working, it's more of a mechanics problem. if you will,
Oh, okay.
slash,
okay,
Super shed.
yeah.
super shed.
Okay, yeah, it just had something on the plan
Yeah,
and I
then
wasn't
the
sure.
kids might want goats or something like that, but it's-
So not necessarily like some people put little apartments in or like,
No.
watering.
No, not even a balcony.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's,
But with that said, say that I do need water, that was the other part of the irrigation, if we need a hose out there, things like that.
Mhm.
That also factors into my reasoning about being proactive and putting in a second.
And I know you've got questions, I just want to clarify that. So I'm just looking at John Larson's email, and and again, I'm just confused because you're sort of describing, he says this is failing, and that was sort of the opposite of the tone I got. So what I'm reading here is, after review of the water quantity and quality conditions, I assured the Nices that their water system, while adequate for their home, was inadequate for irrigation purposes, and using it for irrigation purposes would put too much stress on the well because the amount of water they would need for irrigation purposes, approximately 10 gallons per minute, and their well only produces about 2.5 gallons per minute. And so there's just a little bit of a disconnect there from what you're describing of, I'm using the same water, I'd be using it, I'm doing it from 2 wells. what your engineer is saying is they need to use more water than their current well can produce. And so,
To
Yeah.
answer your question, we presently don't have irrigation. Okay, so we put in a pool, we put in a grass around the pool and plantings, and that's where the irrigation's going to be.
but I just say, if we're asserting my engineer said this, that seemed, like, the only thing I have from your engineer is this.
Yeah.
And it seems like it says the opposite of that. And so if there's other materials where that's present in terms of the proactive component, great, but it just seems like, I just want to be clear for the record, because like what this is and what you're saying don't match, and so that's a piece I want to understand. For me, it doesn't materially change how I feel about the well, but it just, there's that disconnect there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's saying basically that it's 4 times the amount of supply that currently exists would be necessary for the irrigation. So,
And so I'm
That's
not,
just
I'm
what
not
he's
saying
saying.
that's true, but I'm saying, like, that's what he said.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a question of if those estimates by the engineer are not correct, and he'd say, and I don't mean to say you have to do anything with, my personal approach is, I think we have regulations and we need to follow the regulations and we need to follow them broadly, that we need to follow precedent, we need to follow that consistently, but that you can do stuff that I don't want you to do if it follows the rules, and me not wanting you to do it doesn't mean I get to change the rules. And so for me, anchoring to the rules and the precedent are really important, even if I would say, gosh, I hope you wouldn't do that, but if the rules let you do it, you can do it. It's, you know, that's the piece. For me, it's just a struggle of these things don't match, and so if you're saying, I'm asking you as a board to make a decision about this, I've got 2 pieces of data that don't line up with each other, and so it's a question of which of those set of facts should I make the decision based on?
I think indirectly what he's saying is that we have to know irrigation.
Let's call it watering.
yeah.
But he's telling me that the present well will not sustain enough volume.
For routine landscape watering.
Routine, that's it. And then if we when we build a barn, the minimal amount of water there, again, is not, so I'm gonna predict it. The easy prediction would be to get a second well, try to use the same amount of quantity on the property. I'm not looking to abuse it. And then should the first well fail, I have this new well that is a greater volume well that will allow me just to now use that as a primary and just stop the present primary. Does that make sense?
And then, Mark, can you just walk through what that process would look like if we were
Well,
sort of...
I will, but if I may ask a question, I'll walk through the process. If you're planning for the future, why would he put the well so close to the street versus closer to the house? Because now you're gonna be, if you need that well, you're gonna have to put a water, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it from you. Because that's a long water line back where splitting the difference might, see if you split the difference.
Move the well.
See how close it is to the street?
The barn. Barn is now going to be adjacent to, not attached to, but adjacent to the garage. So
Did
it's
he
gonna
think
be
of putting the well closer to the house?
The well is presently right here.
No, this well.
So I think
The
his...
second well.
And
Sure,
that,
I'll put it over here if you guys want.
I mean, the closer to the house, the better for you, because then you get your barn and the
The reason why
house.
it was here is because we had the barn closer to this property line.
I see.
So now we decided, as
Do they
time's
need a
gone
new
on,
plan?
that we're gonna
Move
move the
it.
barn forward closer to the driveway. So I'll put the.
There's your chances of having sodium in the water,
Further from the
Possible.
road is better.
possible
Yeah.
street treatment is less. The closer you go to the road, the more. So what'll happen is they will, did you want me to go through the process?
Just to kind of be transparent, so for sort of saying, if part of the idea is to have that resilience to say, if this relatively lower volume performing well fails, you sort of have a mental
Closer
image
to
of
your
this is
house.
what we'll do. So I think one piece that we'd suggest is have that in closer proximity to the house,
Right.
so that the well can get to the house better.
Yes.
And then
I
it's
just wanna-
further from a butter's wells as well.
But I just want to sort of explicitly articulate to just say, these are the steps that would happen to make sure if we end up there 3 years from now, you don't feel like, I talked to the board about it, I said this was my plan, and you didn't tell me this. And so if you can just like, maybe like 2 or 3
So
minutes. to just
I understand
describe
your issue of redundancy. We see that a lot with many things. But when you go to drill this well, if it's closer to the house, you'll be able to get to the house quicker with a shorter line, as well as the electric that has to go out to the well for the pump and all. So this first step is the plan, which we're going through. The second step is the drilling. Then they call me out for a quantity test. And if it's to be only for irrigation, and that pump test is done, it's a 4-hour pump test. And that's typically when homeowners realize it's not as bad as they thought because they're getting a lot of production. And we wish that for everyone. And usually with the new drilling concepts, the hydrofracking they do after they drill the well, water quantity hasn't been too much of an issue, unless it's an area that's been known to have water issues, and that's very few of them. Then that's done, and they submit those reports, and a water quality test is done to make sure it meets all our requirements. So if that's submitted, then the well is approved for that purpose of irrigation. The only extra step that would be involved would be as if it goes into the house, you would do a tap test, because you're putting in piping to the house, and that has to be tested. So that would be the same exact test at the tap. And
And then the old well would have to
and then
be,
the old well is
Be
typically abandoned,
decommissioned.
but I understand, I feel your pain, because I've seen many applicants come in here through the years that have the same concern. They want that second well just as a secondary, it's a redundancy issue, and I'd hate to give it up, it's producing, but once they see the water coming out of the new well, it's not as difficult to see the need to just use the one well.
But I guess the
They do
question.
such a good job.
But I think from your standpoint, there's two questions. So we really wish you'd want something different. My sense from you is that there's almost no scenario that we're going to convince you you're completely happy with one well. Is that fair to say? And so I think we should just proceed from the assumption that that's your state of mind. I think like our kind of questions about it, but rather than trying to say, I think you should do this, I think you should do that, I don't think we're going to move your state of mind to say, my strong preference as a property owner would be to have 2 wells. And so then it's a question really of, if the first well fails, what does abandonment of that well then entail in connection to this new one as the potable water supply for the house?
They'll fill it up usually with stone the last 20 feet. They use bentonite to seal it from the earth above the ledge, and that point where the casing goes into the ledge, that's where they seal it with bentonite.
and there's another concern that I know the board over the years has had with 2 wells, is that people tend to forget about the second well that you're not using. And wells can be a conduit for contaminants straight into the groundwater. So if it gets neglected, if it doesn't get deactivated, as Mark was just describing,
Decommissioned,
to
yeah.
prevent that from happening, then it's just it's another risk
And
to
so that's
just
one of the-
groundwater quality in general. So is there any reason that you would not just go to a replacement well? Just do it
that's where we
straight
started
away
this
to the replacement
conversation.
well, then end of discussion. You know, you'd have to meet the requirements of setbacks, the information that Lisa and Mark were describing earlier, on where is everything relative to that, as we would do with anybody who's putting in a well, and go straight to that, and then kind of takes care of any of the
Yeah, I guess-
concerns that we have.
Right, I mean, I guess, is there a downside if you can have a well that has a capacity that the well driller seems to say that, they think they can get, that would supply everything you need, is there a downside to just having that one?
I don't know. I'd have
Better
to-
supply
I'd
well.
have to ask the well professional.
Yeah, because I think that would really help eradicate some of the agita that we have. Again, it's not about you in particular, it's
about
just
the big
about our
picture.
concern about the aquifer in general, that we're all using the same aquifer. So it's, it's not infinite, unfortunately.
But if it's,
But if it's 2 straws in the same cup, drinking the same amount, it's the same impact.
Right.
Like I get that. I think
Yeah,
for us,
I
it's a
get-
question of,
I understand that.
I think the other point that's sort of implicit when you said is, when you have one well, you always know how your well's doing, because it's
Right.
what makes your toilet flush. If you have 2 wells and you say, I'm doing this, one of the challenges for the board is the oversight of that. We sort of have a natural mechanism for single well properties to say, we know that this well, the homeowner has a strong incentive to maintain this properly, where if there's a second well that you can say, okay, I can now do this, is there a point at which the board has another touch point to ensure proper abandonment of the existing well? And is that something that,
The well driller submits a form
Yeah, it's a
indicating how-
decommissioning.
but if we have 2 simultaneous wells, for me, one of the things that you mentioned as a source of concern is, we have a second well, that doesn't have oversight because it's not the well you're paying attention to or managing. And if we have two existing wells, there is no well driller because both wells exist. And so is one of the concerns that we have a lack of oversight for the decommissioning of the primary well? If 5 years from now you find that 2.5 is now 1.2.
But that would require the plumbing to connect to the house,
And
which
so-
would
Right, no,
require
that has to
So
happen.
from the abandonment
Yeah.
standpoint, that's not a concern
That-
because if we were gonna
No, it's that someone later, or even you, forgets about that
the irrigation
existence of
well.
the irrigation well, right? Because, same thing, that's not affecting when you turn on your
Right.
tap, you just don't think about it. Next people come in, they don't think about it, they don't look at the plot plans.
My only disagreement would be if the second well is used now for watering, and the existing well is used for the household, one is not gonna be.
No, but I think our point is really, if you eventually need to use the resilience that you're hoping to build in with the second well, that's a piece of it. But if a future homeowner says, I don't want these trees, I'm chainsawing them all down, I want to drive an ATV here, right? Then that second well now no longer touches the homeowner in a way that they're aware of. So it's a question of how does one make sure that an awareness
I think there's ways that we can,
So that
I'm
sounds
less
like it's-
concerned actually about that than just more, you know, is like you're saying, if you have an irrigation well and you have a separate potable well, right now you're feeling the pain, obviously, of that you can't adequately really, you know, fill your pool, sprinkle, you know, your lawn, water your fruit trees, and have adequate supply, because your current capacity just isn't there. So, and I get that. But if you have a well that you're using for all those ancillary purposes, you know, the irrigation, sprinkling, filling your pool, I'm not saying these are bad, no, I'm not saying these are bad things, I'm just saying these are not, you know, drinking water supply, showering, toilet flushing issues. This is not like, you know, only the potable supply. Is there the chance that you are going to be using more because you're just not even, you don't have to track it? And so like in towns that have public water supply, they have things like controls because it's only one supply. So they have things like you can't water your lawn more than once a week, you can't, you know, or alternating days, et cetera. We don't have any of those controls because it's all private water and we all share the same aquifer. You know, that's just the whole bottom line, big
And then-
picture.
But I guess,
When one would most want to irrigate is during a drought, which would be the worst time to be irrigating at the expense of people having
The demand.
drinking water. I'll just
Yeah.
mention one other thing, and again, I'm just going back to this idea of alternative ways to meet it. So I'm an engineer, I work with industrial clients. Having your demand match up to what your supply is something that they face all the time, that there's not adequate flow from one thing or another. So I calculate 2.5 gallons a minute, that would be 3,600 gallons of water a day. I don't know if that's adequate to, I mean, it's more than adequate to meet your home needs, but that's back to the idea of when you're not using it for in-house kinds of activities, whether there's a way to just set it aside, like people do rain barrels now and other rainwater collection systems, and use that for irrigation. And I think there was even somebody in town who had that as a business, but in any case, I get it.
not a fan of rain barrels?
It's extremely, what's the term I'm looking for?
Sustainable?
Patient, kind, wise?
No, it's very much into conserving energy, like toothbrush, brushing your teeth, then floss it on, blah, blah, blah. So if she was here, she would be like, yes, I do. But we're not looking to abuse, I guess, my voice is, we're not looking to abuse the water supply. We're simply being proactive, concerned by a well engineer just telling us that it may be on its last leg, and so let's be proactive and
I would say if you can have anything from your engineer that says it's on its last legs, it would make it much
Yeah, it
easier
just
for me
doesn't say
personally,
that.
because it's just like what he says is it's,
maybe that's
I'm totally happy if your engineer sends me something new that says it's on its last legs.
it doesn't,
It doesn't perform at the, well, I mean, I think he distinguishes it in a way that's not helpful for,
the case.
your goals.
Yeah,
So
right.
Basically, it doesn't.
it doesn't
allow
perform
the-
for what the household will need in its current state and future intended plans.
Very well stated.
Which goes back to,
But I think the
just put in
question
a
of-
replacement well.
but
Yeah,
I-
that's, I mean,
but
I
we-
think that's
we
worth
have
a
to
question
ultimately either
vetting.
say,
Yeah,
like,
I know, we
think we're kind of going
can't
back and forth.
necessarily say no, but it's time for a
But I
regulation.
just want to be clear, so as I briefly looked at it through the Board of Health regs, I don't see something that prohibits having two
No.
wells on a property.
it doesn't,
So I think if we say as a Board of Health, we feel really strongly that that's really important, that's a regulation we need
No,
to
that's what
formalize
I'm
and
saying.
make,
We
so that
need
it's
to do it.
consistent. And I don't
But
think
for
we can-
now, that won't be affecting you, because it'll
Right.
take us a while.
Right, and so then I think it's a question of if the existing wells, there's no variance that's being requested on this well, so it's, right?
Well, we really
So I
need to
think we need to
see the
see the site
details
plans.
before we know that.
But I think that,
I can't believe you don't have a site. That-
yeah, no, I mean, he,
And also, it only noted 150 feet in the verbal
Yeah.
like the
comment, and
attesting.
that's not the only way, I mean, there
Yeah,
are
well,
other
the
measurements.
first one
so-
was 150, and then the second one, he did make it 200.
but I think for the
Okay.
kind of larger
I missed
question
that.
of, if we could wave a magic wand, we would say we'd love to see you replace your well. Having waved our wand for an hour, so far that's been largely ineffective, and that's fine. But then if we don't have regulations that say this isn't allowed, then I don't think we have standing to say you're not allowed to do it, because we need a regulation to say you're not allowed to do it.
Right, but the evidence that, just submitting evidence that such use won't disrupt any quantity or quality
So I
from any
think,
nearby
so I do think
wells.
we need the site plan that says these are where the other wells are. If the other wells are 300 feet away, then I think we still have some uncertainty that we could almost certainly talk about for another hour about fracture lines and bedrock and those pieces. But I think we just have to say we either need to vote on the well, I think we need that information to vote on the well. And so it sounds like we, from our standpoint, don't believe there's a record that we're missing that we've received. Is that fair to say, Mark and Ellen?
Yeah, you're looking to see the abutting wells.
Right, and I think
And
you're
septic.
saying, I have
Yeah.
no idea how this isn't
Apparently,
in your file because.
Mark had the one that showed the septic, we did.
Okay, so
There's-
Mark has
It
a
shows their
septic.
septic.
But there's
Well,
still
but
no
we need-
butter wells.
We need the surrounding.
Right.
Yeah, well,
If
he
it-
put a statement on there, I've been working with Terry Ryan, that's the certified registered land surveyor, but what he wrote is, I certify that there are no wells, leaching fields, or septic system components within 200 feet of the proposed well per field inspection and survey, and from plans on record with the Sherborn Board of Health.
But what I would say is I think.
That, well,
Right,
then
but
that's
what I-
that's
Well, it's
important.
about 151 feet away.
Right, that's why I
But
think
what I
if
would
we
say
could-
is, I think we need to
Why
resolve
Terry
that
needs to go
issue.
back out and talk
So I
to
think
you.
that's the issue we need to resolve. I think the larger question of patterns of use, volume of use, we may have strong feelings about, but we need to turn them into regulations to enforce them. I think we have a valid concern raised by an abutter to say we need to confirm this because the plans we have are weird. I think if we get those plans and they meet the setbacks and variances that is required, then this is a compliant well. And it, even if
As-
you're like,
Yeah, as long as everyone's comfortable that it's not gonna be impacting the quantity
Right.
or quality. And I think,
We really won't know when there's reason,
Right.
based on
Right.
just history in the town, especially of late, with the number of wells that we are affecting one another's wells. But,
well,
Have a
right,
range of mind.
right, which it sounds like you're
And
totally.
then we just hope
Right.
that there's
Right.
still two straws in the same aquifer.
right,
I didn't realize that it was that close to you.
okay, so sometimes engineers make statements, such as was made on this, of I've checked and nothing's within 200 feet. Given that there's been an issue raised, and if that turns out to be correct, I would say that the quickest way forward, given that he's already done the research of where the other things are, is to actually put them on the plan so
it
that
should be pretty simple.
we don't have to keep saying, really, are we sure that that's
Right.
it? And so, again, if he's already looked at the plans and
Well,
already
he has,
checked.
he's gonna, it sounds like they're gonna update him to get closer to the house.
Yeah, and I think
Some of the
that would
old
be the
stuff.
other aspect that you
And
might
some of the
want
old
to
stuff,
consider.
we definitely don't know where every
Is
well in Sherborn is.
seeing if it would be
No.
possible, now that you're moving the barn as well, to maybe consider relocating it a little closer to your house, which would serve your purpose as a contingency, well, should in the future your well
So-
fail.
So-
And then that works
Yeah.
for them too. So I think that would be a win-win.
So in terms of what we need to do today, so it sounds like one piece is we'd like the engineer to
Additional
provide a site
information.
mapping the other wells to resolve this question
And
mark.
septic,
And septic.
although you said that's
Yeah,
already on there.
his had
But
the.
his
septic.
Oh,
is
no, it's
septic.
only the on-site septic.
Yeah.
Neighboring septic, neighboring wells, on-site well, on-site septic.
And so if those things are there and they're compliant, again, I love this conversation. It's been rich, it's been deep, but do we need to have it again, or can we say, if it's compliant, it meets all the setbacks, here's the revised plan showing, what I would say is the closer you can get, the further you can get from the property lines, the more comfortable we'll be to have the non-provable assertion that we think you're doing the best you can to mitigate any effect on an abutting well. You know, is that
And
something we can
closer to your
provisionally?
house, as
Yeah,
Mark
I
pointed
think,
out.
I
is
think
more
that would just make a
practical.
lot more sense.
And is that something that's suitable for provisional approval, you know, depending on this kind of receipt of plans, or do we need to do another hearing?
Would you
Well,
be comfortable, Mark, with?
I would be comfortable, it's just, this would be like the approval process right now, and, you know, we'll go from there, so, as Matt said, there's no regulation, but there's a few win-wins too, and the fact that if he gets closer to the house,
If you do need to
if
use
they
it,
put
it's
it into the
much
house, they only need one pressure tank. If they see lots of water coming out of this, I know you need to be convinced first, but maybe at that point, there'll be a change of heart to the whole situation.
And it
It's your
sounds like-
call, though. I know, I've been through too many of these to know people love to keep their second well, but it's like, I always remember this scenario, you get a new bike, oh, but I want to keep my old bike too.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, your old bike's rotting away, and that's the issue with the contamination that you
Yeah,
mentioned. So again, it's just,
But in terms
sometimes
of,
a shiny new well might look pretty good in a,
but in terms of
long run.
approving it, it sounds like
normally it's the board, but if
Right.
you approve it tonight with
sort of
the
provisional.
notes
Conditionals.
made,
I'm
Be done.
comfortable doing that. Where are folks?
Yeah, I
How are
mean,
we even sure that the engineer, if you don't have it recorded anywhere?
well,
Oh, no,
that's
then
why
we
it's,
say
it
Mark
would,
has-
it would,
Yeah,
it'd
no,
only
that's
be
a provision.
provisional.
Is
They're
that you
supposed
say,
to knock on
Okay,
the
that's
door.
fine.
Right.
It's gonna knock
Conditional.
the door
Yeah.
and show them where it is.
Yeah.
That's what Terry should be doing.
Because our
And there-
well failed about, I don't know, 10 years ago, and we had to go deal with it.
There
yeah,
are engineers who do this, who will go to the neighbors and ask if they
Yeah.
could show them where the well is, and
Okay, that's
and
fine.
I've
if
had
they're
people,
not
that's what
finding it on
the
the
people
plan,
who
so-
built the house across from me did.
He's your butter.
He obviously did it because he made the statement.
Right, I think
He
he
just-
has the information, he just didn't show
Right.
it on the plan.
Yeah.
Right,
Maybe
that's
he
what I'm
did go
saying.
check.
And
Surveyors can go on your property without your knowledge, I've
Yeah.
heard, so,
Yeah.
he may have been on your property without, but they should have just, Terry
Yeah.
Ryan's his
Only
name, he
like
should
20
acknowledge
feet
it to
From the
you.
property line, he wouldn't have to walk far.
Yeah,
Would you feel more comfortable if the engineer was present? Or are you going to take his word that?
As long as it's
Oh, yeah.
not drawing.
Well, as long as he was-
Can you just notify him when we get the marked plans? Because
And then we can look at
you
them.
can say, I have the active affirmative notification, then if you want to review.
So, yeah, Roger?
I suggest you fill your pool from a truck. It's very common to fill your swimming pool
Oh,
with a
it's,
truck.
we put the, as you know, we put the pool in last year, and we filled it with a truck.
Yeah, it's the best way.
No.
Yeah, we would never, that would be.
That water comes in already treated, that's the
yeah, no,
best way
it's,
to do it.
yeah.
From Flint, Michigan.
Don't say that.
You had two questions at some point. I know one came up. Did the
I
other
think
one
I
also
asked
come
his
up
One was-
eventually?
Getting closer to
How do we
the
know about
house.
location? The other was, again, just thinking about straws, the straw analogy, is you're going from 2.5 gallons to 10.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the upper limit? Why doesn't someone put in a 20 or a 50
But we
or
don't know
100?
that they'll get 10. Like, I think we have no idea, like, you'd love
You'll
to get
get you
10. You may not get 10, you may get
Quite
5.
honestly, I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just that they're,
They'll take their time drilling and,
we're not going to abuse the water. It's the whole theory about the two straws.
Yeah.
We just want to be proactive, should the other.
Well, just to let you know, the other piece we look at for everything that comes before us with septic, doesn't matter what the current owner plans to do with it. We have to
It's
look
the
at what
next
the
person.
potential is. So
Hopefully I won't be.
there are people, two people live in an 18-room house, and they have offices, and they have exercise rooms and all the rest. But hey, that could be a lot of bedrooms, and a lot of people live. So we just have to look at it divorced from current users' intent to what would it support. So, but
But in some
in
ways,
terms of, I mean, water rights have been a contentious issue forever, and nobody's come up with a really great way to deal with it. Think about Colorado River in California,
Right,
and
we're
I
not
was
even
just
out
out there, and it doesn't even rain for months and
Somewhere
months. They
far
have
enough to
droughts,
think of
and
a
everybody's
water.
lawn is greener
Yeah,
than
and then
lawns
if-
here.
And we'll
when
see
I get the
plans.
plans, hopefully that would have
Dr.
happened.
Honeywell,
If
I
not,
think I have a
I'm gonna
question.
call you, let you know the plans are here for you to look at. I was just gonna write that down.
Did your engineer, I thought it was funny that they chose a location next to the road where there's like salt and stuff like that.
Because probably proximity to the
other side
farm.
of the property has like no flooding for a long time, have they thought about the other side of the property at all? Do you know? Or is it, maybe there's something about the topography that's better there.
So.
All right, so we need a motion. Are you in motion forming mood?
I think I can have a movement. Do I have a motion to approve the well provisional to revised plans reflecting the revised barn and well location for the primary property, as well as indicating the on-site septic, which is already shown, as well as the wells for abutting property owners?
And septic for
And septic for abutting property owners.
And assuming that they all do, we confirm that they meet all the setback
Yeah, and
requirements.
Meeting
Yeah.
all the setback requirements.
Yeah.
It's so moved.
Second.
Get to say that.
Yeah.
Aye. Have a good night.
Okay.
So I take, since you know Terry, I give it.
You'll give it to
Yeah,
Ellen will
it'll-
take it.
So when you have the revised plan,
And
it'll
she'll get
come
it to
in
me.
to me and Mark then gets it.
Have a good night.
Yeah, it's best if everything funnels through Ellen, because she can keep track of where everything is, so if Mark's doing something else, she knows what the status is.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yep.
Okay, that was a lot of philosophical discussion
Yeah.
there.
I knew it would be.
Okay, Roger, library?
Yeah. Can we flush the toilet?
Only once your well gives you enough water.
Oh, no.
Just
Are we
one
on
well for
camera?
how many buildings? 1, 2,
Yes,
3,
it's
4.
being
Okay.
recorded and just not live.
Oh, okay. So, put my little,
So, 59 North Main, did we do?
no,
Oh,
library.
Rogers.
What's the?
I'm just,
You've done the library.
We did it
yeah, we
already.
did the library. What are you asking? It was the septic
something
alteration?
new?
Yeah, we
Was
already
there
talked
something
about.
else that?
The pipe?
So we
Was
took
there-
care of it before you got here? Oh, I'm really sorry.
Oh, yeah, we did it like an hour ago.
It was his section.
Yeah.
It was good that you heard the water discussion.
No,
As water commissioner, you could share your thoughts on.
Sean was here, we did it in
Thank you
4
for,
minutes.
thank you for saying your comment about the truck, though, because I didn't know what they had done, and
think-
that's certainly what I would prefer people do anyway, so thanks for saying
I
that.
promised Ellen we'd be done at 10, so if we've already voted on something, no,
Let's go back to the library.
yeah.
You went,
It was approved.
plan essentially is okay?
Yeah, they have to assure a clean out inside the building where the pipe exits. And Sean was here and he said,
He gave his
Seen it on
verbal
paper.
confirmation that that would happen, and we'd expect to see it on the as-built,
No, he said.
and it's going in our minutes as the record, rather than on the plans themselves.
Closer to his house. Yeah.
So,
You can go home.
well, you could go home now.
Have a good night.
All right. Sorry, we were too deep in it, didn't even think. All right,
There's, for 59
hadn't
North.
crossed it off.
For 59 North Main, you've got 2 building applications, and then also the new revision to the previously approved septic. So
Okay.
it looks like Mark's doing the building application.
It sounds like an improvement, though, on the septic,
I
right?
just want the
Yeah.
board to know what these units will look like. They're all, according to the.
1
building-
bedroom, 5 offices.
Well,
Lofts.
according to the building commissioner,
59
they're all
North Main.
gonna look the same. So this is the
I thought they were gonna have different number.
No, he said they're all gonna be the same, that's what,
three,
that's what he said.
4.
Okay.
So, this is the first floor plan. You
Yeah, I
have
thought
your
they were-
family room and a master bedroom, dining, kitchen, and the garage coming in. and
So I see 4 rooms on the first floor. These look like they're allegedly unfinished.
And they may be calling this one. Sometimes they'll call this a
Although this
kitchen
looks like an eating island, and it's
open to it.
called a
So
dining room. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, it could be a kitchen nook or breakfast area. So
Open concept.
You're right. It's either 3 or 4, depending
And
on
then
how you look at the kitchen and the dining.
they have the loft,
And then
right?
there's the office loft. And so
The
it's
bane of my
it's
existence.
open up around the stairwell.
I'm just
This
waiting for you
is-
to talk about places
Attached
straight
to
on
a
the
full
Cape.
bath. It gets, hold on, attached to a full bath.
Yeah. This is all open with a full bath. That make a nice mess.
Bedroom.
Yes.
But it's open here, so it's
Yeah.
not affording privacy.
Yeah.
So it's open to the downstairs, is that like, is it?
Yeah, it's open
Yeah.
pretty
And so by
much.
not affording
This is
privacy,
just an
that-
open loft area to the stairwell.
It
and
has
this is
2
open-
doors. That's
Yeah, you can get-
curious.
Yeah, right from the loft, so if you can't.
So
get
that's
in
a.
They don't
ri-
make it
that-
easy.
That's
There's-
a, that's a totally ridiculous design if you're not gonna
Yes.
make that a room.
Exactly.
Well, they,
You're like,
they,
it's, what is it, a
Why
a
do you think I
Jack,
brought it
Jack,
to you
a
guys?
Jack and
I
Jill
didn't know
bathroom
what
with no
they
walls?
this is,
approved.
we've been through, we
No, but
talked
this one is like
specifically to
even more
them about
ridiculous,
this,
where like there's literally no reason you could possibly have a door if you're saying, no, no,
Right.
these are totally the same room. You're like, why, then why, I have no room in my house that's
Yeah,
like, I have
why-
2
why
rooms
you have
into the
2
bathroom.
doors?
I've got a master bath, I've got 1 door into it.
Yeah.
A second door would feel awkward.
Door.
And so it's,
On
unless
either
you're gonna,
side.
unless you're gonna put a wall somewhere in here,
Yeah.
like, I just can imagine no scenario where like, I just can't walk 5 feet, I need another door.
Right, we have a bathroom with 2 doors, but that's because it connects to 2 rooms.
It's a full
It's in
bathroom.
between 2 rooms.
This is, and so is there, so upstairs, so they're sort of saying, here's a second bedroom, this is not a bedroom, this is an office loft.
because it's open to
And
the
those are
downstairs, is
also
there?
5 to 6 rooms.
And so for them,
We're
there's,
looking at room count only.
But they have a 2-bedroom deed
this would be 2
restriction for,
bedrooms.
for,
So it gets
55
funky
plus.
Up to 7 rooms. After 7 rooms, it's definitely a 4-bedroom.
right,
Yeah.
but that's because all, everything less than that is supposed to be treated as a 3-bedroom.
Well, wait a minute, though. I thought the whole caveat with this is that it's limited to 2 bedrooms as 55 plus, so it has a lower septic specification and requirement. So it's not 3 bedrooms, it's supposed to be 2 bedrooms.
And so,
That's correct.
Okay.
and so for them, but what gets tricky is the regulations say you divide by, that you divide by 2 starting at 7, but that's because the other part of the regulation says that everything's.
Wait, is that what it says? I thought it said
What
8.
is if-
The eighth room,
Up to 8.
yeah.
So prior
Yeah.
to 8, it's anybody's guess
Right.
prior to 8.
But it also says all single dwellings are considered at least 3.
Except our regulations.
Except for 55 plus.
Right. And so that's where it squeaks in, is that
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
for non-55 plus, you're covered to 6 because you're
That's
starting
right.
at 3.
That's right. I'm
And
glad you
it's
brought
the
that
7
Yeah,
that
but
you'd
we-
run down, and the 8th is where it kicks in. But this is the loophole for that. And what's the square footage of these again?
Like 2-ish?
I don't remember. It's okay. And so for
It was
us,
2,000
by-
something.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
2-ish-ish.
Yeah.
yeah,
2,100, something like that.
it's only 300 square feet larger than my 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
53, 30, 39 by 30 times 2, 2,400 maybe?
Yeah, only 600 square feet larger than my 3-bedroom.
And then a big basement. So frankly, to me, getting rid of this door, not this door, this door, would be important.
Do we, so what, I guess, what are we?
I think we need to write a letter to the state and just say, look, we cannot look at this and say.
But I guess,
we-
like, what do we
it's
need
not
to
fair
decide
to
on?
put
Like,
us in
what's
that
our-
position.
Because it's a 40, is it, I'm trying to remember, it's a 40B, right?
Yeah.
It's a 55,
It's a
EA.
55 EA.
That's not
It's a-
enforceable.
it's a
55 EA, yeah.
No, but it's a 40B.
Elderly affordable. No, it's not, I don't think so. I think, isn't it just a?
This is a 40B.
That's why it
Oh,
goes to
okay.
ZBA. So what part are we the decider for?
So,
ZBA wants us to do bedroom count and make sure everything's okey-dokey on that
So I
front.
think our communications.
They do
around-
expect that from
So,
us.
so we would say our concern is that the office loft, that it's difficult to imagine
with
a
an
scenario
access
without layering
directly
up.
to a bathroom, yeah.
You know, that's a very odd layout unless the office
Yeah.
loft was intended to function as a bathroom versus.
A
walk-in.
bedroom, yeah.
So how, what's this distance, Mark, 5 feet?
Which one are you looking for?
So if you're gonna walk from here to here, we're saying you say walking
about
5.
5 feet.
And so it's difficult to imagine a scenario where one would place a second doorway to save a 5-foot walk.
Yes.
And
For,
then-
considering that you're
Right.
using it only as an office.
And so I think I think this is the piece I would highlight to the ZBA to say that's a pattern that we find concerning in terms of the use of the office loft, regardless of what's open to where, that having 2 doors into a bathroom 5 feet apart seems fairly bizarre.
Yes.
And we'd encourage them to consider that. And
It's
that's-
inviting conversion of that. to
And what,
another bedroom.
what's the requirement, so if it's gonna be 55 plus EA, does only one of the,
Only one person
has to be more than 55? So you could totally have a 6-year-old
Person
guy with a 30-year-old wife.
Right.
There's no prohibition on children being there. I mean, this is the exact same
But-
stuff that we
But
talked about before.
we've been up and down that, apparently,
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah.
And so from a rooms count standpoint,
Yeah.
if they have more than 4 rooms, we'd say, like, I guess I'm trying to figure out when we count bedrooms,
See,
it's where the
gotta-
concern,
gotta-
it's not a
before
room
you use
count.
that half rule, you gotta go up to 8.
Yeah.
Right,
They
but
have
but from a room count argument, right?
If you were to look at that half for any room count, then
But so for us, we're saying the room count argument then doesn't apply, because
No.
there's no scenario we believe there's 8, so it's only,
But then it goes to our 3-bedroom.
well, so it goes to
minimum.
a 3-bedroom, or it goes to our.
Which is
any room
not
above
what the
second
septic's
floor.
adequate for. The
And-
septic's
Right.
designed for
And
2.
then- Right, and so then for us, it goes to, you describing a use pattern on the first floor of a master bedroom. You
Yeah.
have 2 rooms on the upper floor, one does not offer privacy, but does offer 2 doorways within 5 feet to bathroom access.
Yeah.
it's
So,
2.5 baths, because you got
Right.
the powder room here, and then the full bath off the master, and another full bath
on the second,
in the middle of the hallway.
right.
Oh, no, that makes
Yeah.
sense for the bedroom up here. Yeah.
It
Right.
does, but.
But why do you have 2 points of
I would
it?
think,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind even.
Or like, why not make that in suite?
Why is that not
Right.
closer?
Make
Right.
it part of the master.
Yeah, yeah, why-
Or why not do it in suite to the bedroom, since the bedroom's
Yeah,
a
no,
bedroom,
I don't
and
know.
like, Why would
I don't
you,
know.
why would you say, gosh, I really hoped I could take a bath in that?
I don't think I've ever seen a loft
With a full bath.
with a full bath in it. I've never seen something that's truly functioning as a loft
So
with a full
from
bath.
this counting standpoint, it
It-
counts as 2
it's a
bedrooms,
bedroom.
but the office loft is concerning, given the pattern of use they've
Yeah.
described for the bathroom.
There's
that-
no,
That it's not a clear-cut 2-bedroom.
it's inviting. I think it's just inviting that kind of
Yeah.
conversion.
And so I think,
Suggesting it's ready to go
Right.
for that.
you
Doesn't,
can picture the conversation, you just put up a wall in here, and then there you go, and there's
Yeah. another
the
master
in-house.
suite.
That's why he brought you
Skilled
here,
nursing.
and
Yep.
sit and
Yeah.
have fun with you.
So we would recommend modification of the bathroom to not include a second access
And
point.
that's the door I want eliminated.
Right.
Not that one,
Faces the loft.
Right.
this one.
Well,
Has to be.
The one that doesn't face the bedroom, how about that?
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we would
Both
leave it
face
to,
the loft.
so this is our advice to ZBA, and then ZBA will make the determination about next steps.
I hope so, and they can contact us if they have any questions for more
So I don't have to move anything.
details.
So I won't approve these, obviously.
Right.
So this is a letter that will go to the ZBA?
Or an email, letter.
Or an email?
which-
Yeah.
Goes to the
Yeah.
building commissioner too. I mean,
Okay.
So he knows what.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
doing.
that's a good idea. Yep, because sometimes stuff
Hmm?
happens.
I told Chris they would be coming here, he knew that.
Okay.
You see, we get these building
Saying.
applications with control
You have
forms,
to talk about them,
and he'd be
though.
looking for sign-offs
So,
within
did they
30
both
days.
look like this?
Yeah, they're all alike, he said, you know, open
They're all
it.
identical?
That's what he said to me.
Okay, because I swear.
Eventually, they're going to have to submit plans for everything, though, right, specifically?
Yeah. Just to make sure he's.
I promise, it's the
Yeah,
same.
It's the same, they're all
I swear to
identical.
God, they showed us
Powder
that there were
room,
multiple
Oh, that's my
floor
recollection.
layouts.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not crazy.
Oh, yeah, isn't this the one that we spent all the time looking at all the lofts?
This is the
Yeah.
office law.
Yeah, I
They're
mean-
all- He said they were all identical. and
Initially, there were
it's
2 or
like-
3 layouts
All
proposed,
right.
so.
Is there 3 building applications, or just
So-
2? Are there-
Unit 2 and unit 3 and unit 5 is what
Oh,
we
okay.
have here.
Oh, okay.
And, as I, here, they both right here, this 2, this is unit
Okay.
5. this unit
But when you looked at the plans, they were identical.
The ones we have been given, which are with the building application, and this was rolled up next to this building application, they're identical.
Okay.
And according to Chris,
the building commissioner, they're all gonna be the same.
Okay.
Every single one of them. Except for two
And
of
so
them that
we-
you'll see in the next application, which is,
The
two
two
of them may
affordable.
have a basement with well equipment. So I'll show that to you next.
Are those gonna be the affordable units?
I don't know.
They're not supposed to be different in appearance or?
Two affordable units, 2 units with well equipment in the basement?
Yeah.
Yes, which
I don't know
which
if I
thing is
know
that on here?
It's,
The septic. Right.
Oh, okay.
They actually proposed some nice improvements to the layout of the septic, so that I like. Now I'm just really doubting the capacity of the septic. As designed, vis-à-vis the building.
The design.
So.
marked up a little bit, but this
Oh,
is,
yeah.
this is the septic.
Capiche?
Septic slash, water lines. And this is the entrance coming in. And I highlighted the sewer lines with the sewer manholes in green. They both go this way, there's nothing in between here. And then the water lines are coming along the front too and crossing over the sewer lines. Either might it be from the house or from the main line. So there are quite a few of them. I put them in diamonds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or about 9. I might have missed one, 10, I could be 10, I might have missed one there. So what they're proposing is,
That was Ellen.
It was. Chivalrous thing would have been to
Dude,
take
no,
the
not a
hit.
chance. I know the look. But he doesn't have the headphones on.
they're proposing to take that water line that comes out from the wells over here and over here and put it behind the homes versus out to the street.
With a crossover.
Yeah, with all the crossovers.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But I think the original reason they didn't do that was all your infiltrators are going to be right next to now his water line's in red, the change one. But, so here's the first well, main line comes into a lockable Bilco bulkhead with lockable egress door at basement. But I did ask him, I said, can the owners of unit 12 and, well, I didn't know the units then, and the unit over here access the equipment? You know, or are they gonna be in locked rooms? He said, well, we'll build a wall. I said, well, there's nothing now, and that was yesterday, and he doesn't show anything saying it's gonna have a separate room. It's just gonna have a bulkhead. So I don't know if that's something, I can't remember what they did with previous.
For the wells, all the other units need to have access.
I was gonna say, yeah, how's that
So I guess if it's
gonna-
lockable and they all had a key,
Right.
that would be one thing.
So through a bulkhead though, like an exterior bulkhead that they
Yeah,
could
he's
access it?
Showing a bulkhead on both
But I
facilities.
think they also have to have ownership of the land
Well, for the,
connected to it, so
So originally they were building these.
that's DEP regulation
Yeah, so
for
see, originally
doing
they had
these.
these pump houses that they were building.
Right, and then.
why did they change it?
I don't know. I don't know why he's just not going with the pump houses still.
And I don't know about you, but my office is above where our pump is, and to be above where.
Well, that's
our
what-
pump
Not
is
very pleasant.
laying-
All right.
No, I don't understand.
Affordable unit and affordable unit
Yeah.
are the
Two.
two.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it really?
Good catch, man. Yeah.
Oh, that's not.
Oh my
not
God, they're in
okay.
the.
Yeah.
That's not,
You
a-
said that before you.
that's
Wow.
actually forbidden.
Right. So I
Wow.
think
It's-
that's
it's
the other
actually
con-
illegal.
That's the other concern to
Yeah.
raise to ZBA is you're sort of identifying, gosh, it's really loud, that seems like a weird place to put
Yeah.
it.
I just saw this
And then you're putting
tonight,
it
so.
into
Yeah, no,
affordable.
I mean, that, they can't do that.
So that sounds like another point.
And
included
I
in the
think
letter.
it causes problems with that whole access of all the owners and
Absolutely.
owning the land, and so how are you gonna own under
Someone's
Else's
property?
house.
Yeah.
It seems a little peculiar.
Although that's not, for
interesting.
things like condos, like what, I've had to put like, basically radon systems in condos. And so the way it works is that it's on the deed for all of them because anything underneath is considered communal property. And so if it's underneath the actual land in the subsurface, it,
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if it's inside the basement, though, that doesn't
Right, 'cause
apply.
that- right, 'cause
So
there's
I
no-
don't think, I think that that might also be inconsistent with the DEP regulations. I would say, no, it should go back to the way it was originally designed, because then it's clearly communal property, and there's access by anybody. You're never gonna want a situation where someone would have to go into someone's private
Right.
property for a well issue.
Yeah.
That's inappropriate.
Or to
No,
say
it does not
it's-
sound good.
Now, Ellen, did we receive in writing confirmation from Conservation?
Yes.
She's letting them go right through the wetlands with the water
Yeah.
line?
Yeah, yes,
Who is?
it's in the
Not
file,
that she
it's
is,
in your
but-
folder,
Okay.
in the folder.
But that
That's
does seem
another
weird to
thing
say
I
why you're
was
putting a
saying.
water line
Get
through
through
wetlands.
conservation, I don't understand that.
It's like bring it from dig, it's buried, right?
I mean,
No, they weren't.
You can do stuff in wetlands for water supply.
yeah, I don't, that
There's
doesn't.
actually something
really
different.
bother
You
me.
still can avoid the
Well, I
wetlands,
guess it
even
didn't
though you
bother Al
can,
either.
if
Yeah,
there's a,
but I
there's a
think
choice, and they're obviously.
This
choice.
bothers me.
Yeah. Putting
Well,
the
maybe they
burdens
can't
on
go
the
through
here.
affordable units.
I don't know.
Yeah, and also the access, it's not, that's
I mean,
not consistent.
The good concept is definitely going the back side of the homes.
We like that, but we'd encourage them to use pump houses to do so, given that we're concerned it may be illegal to do what they propose.
That's about what I would think.
And do we need, in terms of the question of, like, right now, we're asserting that the affordable units need to match the other units, is that something we need to validate with town council, or is that up to the ZBA to figure out?
That's up to them to figure out, and there are differences in finishes. So they're not supposed to be noticeably different from the outside. It's supposed to blend in, although,
Loud utilities,
well, that's the noisy house. But, you know, some may have marble countertops and others don't, or something like
Yeah.
that.
There are differences. This just bumps out here, in here, but I don't see it. Oh, here it is, okay. They're mirrored.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it
They
sounds
are.
like the key points to highlight to ZBA for the room count is the concern about the bathroom. For this, we're enthusiastic with the rerouting of the piping and think that's an active improvement, but we're concerned about the pump,
Location
the well
within-
footprint being both contained in the private residence and those private residents being isolated to the affordable units.
Yeah.
Are two issues we'd encourage the
Yeah,
ZBA.
right.
Right, which
yeah.
seems to be not consistent with the DEP's requirements about
Accessibility.
all owners having, right, access to the components of the water supply system.
Is it access or is it ownership? Because I think.
Ownership and
Right.
the reason
Both,
for the, so you
Because
can't
access
own
you
a
can
1
fix,
foot wide
right.
Yeah,
strip of land that connects. You need something to get
Okay,
a
to
truck
actually,
in
to
or
actually say,
service
I don't
or-
need, I'm not
Yeah, 'cause if it's-
trespassing to
if it's-
access my.
right.
Like, if you're like, these neighbors hate each other, you can't say like, you can't come on my land, well, I have to
Right.
come on your land for my well.
Right. And I mean, the lockable from the outside implies that if everyone had a key, they could get in there or let someone else in there. But
If you own the
it
lot.
just seems,
to put it in their basement, essentially.
Yeah.
it
Right.
Does not seem appropriate.
and again, that's pumping for a lot of units. That's
Yeah.
a pump operating
That's gonna be
often.
loud.
Yeah. And I don't, you know, again, but it goes to how would DEP, and maybe they'll have to consult with DEP to see if they consider that consistent. Oh. Did they get anything in writing from the DEP on these wells being okay with being, serving 24 people each? That might be something else to tell them, because this ties in, right? If DEP reviews it and feels that this is appropriate, and allegedly part of DEP's approval process is to check that land and, land ownership and accessibility.
Back to the drawing board, I'll tell them. This is.
I'm curious what motivated the modification.
Well, I told them they were gonna need to, under Title V, they had to pressure test both the water lines and the sewer lines. Not just say they're pressure rated, they have to be pressure tested
Tested.
per Title V. Where, I told them, this is a septic system, this isn't town sewer.
Right.
And what they do with those laws are totally different. They weren't happy they had to use Schedule 40 pipe. And again, I told them, if you want to request a waiver, that goes through the board, and they didn't want to wait, so.
I'm not questioning those modifications, I'm questioning why did they go from the pump house to,
And
so
he
like
was
that
kind of
way-
brushing me off on that yesterday too. I said,
yeah,
"Why are you going?"
that's what I'm
I said,
curious about.
You know, and he didn't
Is
even
it-
propose.
So is there any?
Probably cheaper.
Yeah. Or aesthetically, like, there's one less thing to look at, but it's also,
But they were gonna be behind there, right? They were gonna be, the pump
Yeah, the
houses were
pump
gonna
house,
be.
one of them is shown on the plan, the other, I'd have to get the larger.
so is there
plan.
anything for us to vote on?
The pump house is.
We're providing
There's
input,
one of them
right?
here. There's
Right,
a
and we're
water line
not
coming
saying
through.
okay to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not approved as of this point.
Standing information needs.
And I asked him to be here tonight, but he didn't want to come. He had other things to do, and this was rushed in today. We received this
Yeah,
today.
this afternoon.
Oh.
I saw it conceptual
Okay.
yesterday, but it didn't show where the well equipment would be, so.
Well, thank you, Mark. Given that it just came in today, I would say
Very helpful.
it's pretty amazing.
Kudos.
So, we've got, is this?
We have one more item,
140,
as far as I can tell, which is 140 Western
That
Ave,
was my last item.
new septic, new
Yeah,
well.
that's a plan that's been with us for a few years, but the reason we've had it so long is because it was conditional to the abutting property abandoning a well. So basically, at 136 Western Ave, they built a new septic system, new well, and they had enough land to separate it to make a parcel as 140 Western Ave. So
Why is Western Ave so active?
It's where all the cool people are.
Is that what it is? Or is it just that it's like it's wet, so more of it comes to the board?
Well, actually, I'm on the other
Rules
side.
You're on the not cool side of Western Ave?
No, I am
You're
the
on like
cool
eastern
side.
western?
I'm on the side not near Odessa, so I'm definitely the cool
I
side.
marked it up a little bit, but it's for the reason that, to show, I like his name.
I like it, yeah, I like it.
So this is the new house, with the existing house right here, 136, the common driveway. Now, they're gonna have a driveway going their way, and this driveway exists. This was all one property at one time, and this was a challenge with wetlands, because there's wetlands all in the front of this property. So they had a really
This is-
good engineering.
This is the one, I don't know if you remembered, but the well, the new well for the existing property,
Had to be drilled twice.
they drilled it in the wrong place,
Oops.
Yeah,
and
this
they
one-
had
this
to fill it in and re-drill it
Oh, wow.
in the
How
correct.
wrong-
So they
how wrong?
drilled it somewhere over here and they had to
Oh,
Yeah.
not even close.
it was when Ethan was here.
Yeah, it
so,
was when Ethan,
2 summers ago maybe. So they re-drilled it in the right place, and that's the existing well now. No, that's
Oh,
proposed.
all right, now it's
So
coming back to me.
The other well was
Okay.
drilled here incorrectly, I guess, in the wetland areas, so they had to redo that. So, but they did abandon this well. We have the information from the
Did they
well
decommission
driller.
it? Yeah.
Yep, the well driller's information's on file. Because this septic system they want to put in couldn't go that close. So now with that abandoned, a new well in for this house, and a new septic system right here, actually, they are now ready to do this part of the property. And the well, interestingly enough, there will be erosion control barriers because it's so close to, just like this well had to too, it's so close to the wetlands. If you go by this property, it just looks like a bunch of brush.
Can
in
you
the
see,
front.
show me where Fessenden is relative to this?
This property
it's,
is not, his curve street.
way down.
Yeah,
And so this property is right about here. They show like a little wetland here. Here's
Yeah.
Stevens Street,
what street is that?
Stevens.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's, as you're heading down to, here's Whitney coming into town, Maple Street. And
Yeah.
so it's, you could go by
Okay, I
it
know
just
where
like
it is.
that, because
I
it
know
just
where.
looks like a bunch of brush. And then the house is set up a little higher.
It's
Okay.
before you get
Houses
to the
up
barber, so the barber is further that
Yes.
way.
Yeah, and this is the road to Shaw's.
That's correct.
Shows
That's
love hearing that.
like a market basket. So, okay.
And
Where's that,
road
Mike?
to
That's where
Shaw's.
the Thai place.
Oh, yeah.
So they
Through
put
Pond
the
Lot or
septic
whatever.
system in here, the soil test passed. We tested a long time ago, back in, I remember talking, it was back in 2012. We tested that property, so it was 4 years ago.
Okay, so what do we need to do
6,
tonight?
What am I saying? You know, that was, is that when we had the H1N1? Because I remember talking to the. I
2009.
think it was in that time period.
That was 2009,
Was it H1N1?
yeah.
Well, someone had a bad code on the
Back
backhoe,
then.
maybe it was for this property. I said, don't dare go to the Boston Garden, they'll kick you out, because it was during the H1N1.
Interesting.
It's just funny how you remember things. So this is ready, this is a conditional 2. It's an older plan, and Paul, I told him like we could do this in pre-construction. He has to have 4 inches of this 1 1/4 to 1 3/4 stone above the pipe and below it as well. And I was gonna do that in pre-construction, so he didn't have to do the whole plan over, but that would be the only pre-construction note that goes along with the approval.
Okay. Is it me, or are plans just getting more and more complicated as people are squishing things
Yeah,
in?
they're getting
Yeah,
complicated.
it's
That's
like
why
how to
we-
make
I mean, I don't, this is one of
That's why
the,
I'm
You're
using
also
the
just like,
highlighter.
when something happens, what is this, you're like, I'm picturing in like 22 years, the variance hearing where you're like, well, there's like a 40-foot thing this way. This was like the old, this wetland, and you're like, we wedged it into here.
So are they gonna submit new plans to us?
We could ask him for new plans.
Because this is basically just marked up 2016.
Oh, I got
Oh,
4
yeah.
other plans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is my plan for my working.
Oh,
plan.
okay.
so we could have a motion to approve the plans, noting that by pre-construction, they should have a revised plan? Was that what you were saying?
That's fine. I could-
Or it would just be
Or
on
wait to the
as-built.
as-built?
We
Okay,
usually do it
That's what
as
it
built.
usually,
okay.
And,
because what is it that you need? It's the stone
the
above
stone
and below?
below and above the pipe has to be defined per our code. They use the state code is what they do with trenches, and our code requires a little bit larger stone. That's why we 1 1/4, 1 3/4 versus 1 1/2, 1 3/4 to 1 1/2. And we also require 4 inches of that above the distribution pipe, the actual leaching pipe. And then the 2 inches of pea stone. So, yeah, this is my plan. We still have 4 other plans that aren't marked up.
Okay, so can you go over
Oh,
again?
and
What are
then-
we supposed to be approving? I'm
And
just-
what about the
They can't have,
deed?
they can't have a
No.
garbage. can
Okay, so
prohibition of a
we're
garbage
looking
can.
for a motion to approve
I think
the,
your question is, can you just print on the plans, we're approving this and this?
Yeah, I don't.
So Mark, I think we're approving, this is a septic field,
Yeah, the well and the septic.
and so it's this well,
Yep.
and that's.
For the,
there.
for the second parcel, for the
Yes.
one,
This is for
140, okay.
Western Ave.
right,
Okay.
and that's how it's identified, right?
Okay.
Or lot
Yeah,
one.
I was just sort of
well,
confusing.
It's lot 1 Western Ave, but they just gave it an address.
Okay.
I guess the owner's gonna build a house for his daughter, according to what we.
All
heard.
right, so
They
this will
came-
be for lot 1/140 Western
And
Ave.
it needs no.
Awesome.
Subject to
No variance.
receipt of a deed restriction for the garbage grinder, and noting that plans updated, as you just said, would be
During the as-built process.
during the as-built or
Well,
as-built?
I'll mention this at the pre-construction,
Okay,
and then require it be shown on the as-built.
okay. And you'll be out there inspecting to see
Yep.
that they do, so, okay. Is that enough for, okay, do we have that motion?
Yep.
So moved, okay.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
You're gonna see more and more trenches with stones. The engineers are starting to get a little fearful of some of the plastic technologies, like Infiltrator, Caltech, and Paul's one of them. He's all of a sudden switching back to stone. And they forgot about our regulation requiring it, so
Okay,
this is an old plan, but he just came in with another plan, and he had to update that one as well.
all right, I think we're done.
Stand
Yeah, we did pretty good.
Close.
Yeah,
10:10 sounds,
Yeah.
has a nice sound.
it is. And we've
Not
already done
bad.
minutes. So I think I'm framing this as an agenda question, partly because I just can't remember where things stand. So I was contacted by somebody just sort of asking the final punchline for kind of Scott Horsley. What I couldn't remember is, I know we had the presentation, are we still waiting for a final, like, does he still have work product that's going to be provided to us?
Yeah.
And what's-
Yeah, he didn't,
Because I let him know that we would pay the invoice because we wanted to get it in the fiscal year, and I said, but we'd like to see a few things capturing things he mentioned, particularly when he came to speak
Yeah.
to all of us, that we'd like that also in the report, so someday we'll find time to sit down, just identify what those items are, and
Well-
then he could add it in.
but didn't we talk to him about, do we even have his PowerPoint?
We do,
Yeah.
but we think there's maybe
It
an
might be,
extra
I think there
thing.
was one slide that he said wasn't.
In what he
the
provided
PowerPoint.
to us.
Right.
But he agreed.
That
I
he
have
did
the- and
show
we-
on
You
the-
have the email that says he is
Yeah.
willing to.
Because I also think we should post the PowerPoint on the
Right.
website. And
Right.
I think we
And
had
I-
said we were going to do that,
And I
so.
talked, yeah, because you had told me to post his report
Yep.
and the PowerPoint.
Yes.
So I was waiting to have both final,
Right, and
before-
we don't have it yet, do we?
yeah, and we
And
don't
so-
have the final report.
So we need that.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming, and then the other thing, because I've also been asked, somebody was, carved off a parcel and was waiting to be able to build a mound on it. I said, we'll be waiting for others who are trying to
Right.
do stuff that we could piggyback on to get through. Maybe it's a year out, so.
And so this is the kind of question for that layer cake design that was talked, so that was the other piece that I couldn't remember, is for the layer cake, my recollection was it needed to go through some volume of test cases for part of the EA technology.
Right, it needs to be assessed, and that will tell us, like, if they can amend
Title,
the Title V
Five,
requirements for design,
yeah.
then either we could determine if that would be sufficient, the layer cake,
Okay.
or could we then maybe take the layer cake and go another step,
Right,
whatever
or-
it
or
is.
kind of- And so for us, in terms of the kind of achieving resolution, we'll get a final report from Scott. Is it feasible for us to get a timeline and to say, like, we'd like to see that by early September? Because it sounds like our August 15th meeting, we're fairly well packed,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd probably be better served by shooting for the early September, like the first September meeting. Is that realistic? or
Yeah, I
should
think
we
at that meeting, we could talk about,
Just kind of, here's the update.
because I remember
here's the-
just things that I don't see in the report that I knew were important points that he brought up in the
Yeah.
presentation that I just want captured on paper.
Yeah. So can we do that for the first September agenda, to just say, here's the update on it?
Yeah.
Kind of trying to be realistic of
Yeah.
the lots of constraints. on
And just do an
people's times.
update, and, because I haven't, we haven't asked his timeline
Right.
of things and what else he has going on, so. And then the other piece is, so we didn't use up the whole budget that we had, because we had 2 phases.
Yeah.
But we weren't moving on to phase 2 unless it looked like there was something solid to move on to. Well, then what should that
We didn't
amended
scope
design
it
look
out
like?
yet,
And
yeah.
so he was fine with holding on that phase until there's more information available, either from the Barnstable folks or
Okay.
something else, and then we could move ahead. We gave the money back to the town essentially,
Right.
because advisory, doesn't want to see us really sitting on little piles
Don't
of
keep-
cash.
Don't keep it in your pocket. You can go ahead, put it back in the bank. You need it,
Oh.
bank's still there.
Is this our date?
And we'll just
Does that
ask
have
for
that?
it.
know it. The Paul
When we
doesn't
need
give
it.
me any space, and I apologize.
I put the right date.
Okay, yeah, that's his date,
Awesome.
basically.
All right, so-
So put that not next meeting.
This
but the
plan I
meeting
have
after,
here,
just
too.
amounting it.
I always let Daryl
And
sign.
I'm about to adjourn the meeting because we're just signing plans. So,
Want to adjourn?
yep, we are adjourned.